and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Connor Newt in today with us. Hello, Connor Newt.
Hello, Jared Stillman.
So I'm just going to be honest with everybody out there. This is the first time this has happened in my life. My son got sick last week. He got sick on Monday night, and we took him to the doctor on Tuesday. He had a cold, he had a cough, and so we took him to the doctor. And the reason this is the first time this has happened in my life is because I got sick the next day, and I have been on my ass for a week. And so I'm starting to get over it. I don't know how it sounds. I don't know if it sounds bad. I don't know if it sounds the same. I don't know. I ask for no sympathy, but just know, holy crap. When people say, Ian told me this years ago, Ian said, dude, your kids are going to get you sick. Whenever you have kids, they're going to get you sick. And I'll be damned if my son did not put me on my rear end for pretty much all of last week. So this morning, I awoke to the news like many other people did. I was actually at the doctor when my phone started buzzing. And I knew something must be up. I had text messages from Chase McCabe and Adam Vingan and Caroline Fenton. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I saw the story that Will Levis is out for the season to have shoulder surgery off the shoulder that he injured in the Indianapolis game the Miami game, and then played a week later in the Indianapolis game. Apparently, 8 months later, Will Levis is still hurt, so he's going to have the surgery on the eve of the opening of training camp. But didn't Will Levis say that he was fine right after it happened? And he did play the next week, and then he complained about it after the game, and he stunk in that Indianapolis game, and then he sat the bench for a couple of weeks. Then he came back, and he stunk some more, and then he got benched. And then he went and spent all offseason working with Jordan Palmer, and he was competing in the offseason program. And so, again, on the day before training camp, Will Levis just up and decided to quit. That's what he did. If this were college football, he would have entered the transfer portal. He quit today. And if anybody else tells you that it is anything other than that, of him deciding, I'm not going to play quarterback this year, they drafted somebody ahead of me. Quite frankly, I think Brandon Allen's probably ahead of him on the depth chart too. Not a lot of people are talking about that, but I believe that. So I'm just going to get the shoulder surgery, and I'm just going to make sure I'm healthy because, God forbid, I try to compete and play football this year. The Titans said in a statement, quote, he approached the offseason with professionalism and showed clear growth as a leader. Yeah, he showed real growth. Oh, I'm not going to play this year? I quit. What a leader. But that's how it goes with the Titans. And here's the deal. And I say this with all due respect, but I think far too many people out there, media, Titans fans, I think they're being too kind. I say this with all due respect. Again, Chris Sanders does this before he criticizes somebody. He goes, I say this respectfully. Will Levis is a loser. It's time to admit it. He is a losing football player. And I can't put my finger on it exactly as to why he's a loser. Sometimes I think he's a little afraid of being himself. Sometimes I think he's a little too worried about what they say on social media and what it means for his brand and whatnot. I don't know the reason why he's such a loser. I'm not a psychologist, and I'm certainly not his psychologist. But I'm here to tell you today, he's a loser. You do not win with people like that in positions of importance in your organization. Just so you know, Kentucky didn't win with Will Levis at quarterback, and neither did the Titans. If you're too hurt to play, you tell the team. Why? Because as much as we love the macho Steve McNair, I'll play through everything. You can't hurt the team when you can't do your job. So if you're a starting quarterback and you're hurt to the point that you're going to hurt the football team, because your shoulder is so jacked up You don't go to the media after the game is over when you threw for 95 yards against the Colts and you say, well, my shoulder's still bothering me. No, you go to the trainer and you say, look, I'm 75%. I can't make that throw. I can't make that throw. So now the coach can look at the game plan and say, okay, if you can't do that, we have to get somebody else in there to give the other guys on our team a chance to win. Oftentimes, if you're a difference maker at quarterback and you tell the coach, I can't do this, I can't do that, then the coach says, okay, well, let's take this out, let's take that out, but let's put Peyton Manning in a position to where he can make some plays for us, because even though he's not the sheriff of old and he can't feel the ball in his fingertips anymore after all the neck surgeries, he's still Peyton Manning. We still want him out there. But when you're not honest with your team, when you're too hurt to play, and you go to the podium and you make that excuse, and the head coach asks the same thing, says, he didn't say any of that to us, what does that make you? Selfish. That's what it makes you. When you opt not to have the surgery, probably because you're looking to get traded, and then you see, I'm not going to get traded, I'm going to have to go to training camp, I'm really battling with Brandon Allen for the backup job. He's not battling with Cam Ward. They just paid Cam Ward $40 million in signing bonus money. They just paid him $40 million. He's not competing with Cam Ward. So when you say, well, may not even be the backup here, I'll just have the surgery sit my ass on the sideline this year, that's selfish too. The timing of this is insanely skeptical. If the Titans had decided to trade the first overall pick and then say, well, we're going to battle it out between Levis and Daniel Jones or whomever, hell, even Brandon Allen, do you think he would have had the surgery, or do you think he would have told everybody that he's fine? If the Titans had re-signed Mason Rudolph and they didn't draft Cam Ward, do you think he would have had the surgery, or do you think he would have told everybody that he's fine? Now, as far as Levis is concerned and what it means for the team and what it means to me, I don't really care, because I've stopped caring about Levis. Levis isn't important. Levis hasn't been important to me since he got benched after the Cincinnati game, because once the coach benches you, when you're a young quarterback and the coach benches you for Mason Rudolph, it's over. I never did this thing like Kaharski did where I looked at it and said, well, he's only under contract for $1 million, so he stinks. They've moved on. So Levis isn't important to this team anyways. But Will Levis lying to the team last October about his shoulder, and then deciding after the offseason and after Cam Ward was drafted and after he wasn't traded to another club to have the surgery and miss the whole season on the eve of training camp, it proved to me what I already knew, which is that Will Levis is a loser. You want to know why Will Levis fell in the draft in 2023? Because teams brought him in on visits. The Texans brought him in on a visit. Carolina brought him in on a visit. Indianapolis brought him in on a visit. Tennessee brought him in on a visit. Countless others brought him in on visits. And when he came in on those visits, when he met with them at the combine, the teams looked at each other and they said, that guy's a loser. And you can couch it however you want. He rubbed us the wrong way. We didn't like his attitude. We didn't. The reality was they looked at him and they said, we can't win with this meathead. So we're not going to put our reputations and our careers on the line with him. I know Mark Stoops goes all in when he talks about Will Levis, but what has Mark Stoops ever won? So at the end of the day, what this really means to me, what I feel like I've learned today about the suspicious timing of Will Levis deciding to have season-ending shoulder surgery the day before training camp, when it is obvious that this was a Will Levis decision made by his agents, with him, his second opinions, and he's entitled to that. But what it tells me is Will Levis is not interested in competing. It tells me that Will Levis is not a winner. Will Levis is a front runner. Will Levis likes it when everybody's pumping his tires. He'll show up at 4 a.m. and he'll put together the best mayonnaise commercial you've ever seen. But when you ask him to battle for the backup job with Brandon Allen, and he's probably going to lose to Brandon Allen, he's not interested in that. No, I'll have the shoulder surgery. From the shoulder surgery, or from the shoulder injury I suffered last October. You know, the one that I lied to the team about, said I was ready to play, and then used as an excuse to the media after I lost the game. Yeah, that one. Boy, that's a real winner, eh? Again, Will Levis doesn't matter to the 2025 Tennessee Titans because he was never going to play quarterback for this team anyway. But what a loser. And I don't know if you all know this, but you don't build a winning football team and a winning culture with losers in your organization. So my biggest takeaway from the Will Levis news today, good riddance. He sucked. His head was never in the right place, and he's not made of the right stuff. Good riddance. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There's now a national narrative that is following the Titans with this news. That, again, I don't know where they're getting this from, but we'll get to that next as well. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. There you go. That was Robert Turbin on Sirius XM NFL Radio. And I think it's hilarious because it's like, all teams are going to look at him differently now after this. And he shouldn't have listened to the team. He should have gotten a second opinion right away. And he wanted to get traded. That's why Will Levis didn't have surgery right after the season. He wanted to get traded. He was going to go work with Jordan Palmer. He was going to go rechange his game. He was going to go get traded, which I was shocked he didn't get traded, to be completely frank with you. But that's what he was going to do. But the national media has absolutely no idea when it comes to the Tennessee Titans, really anything, especially about the backup quarterback position and who's here and who's not and everything else. So this morning, when Adam Schefter reported that Will Levis was going to have the surgery and Will Levis was going to miss the season, Adam Schefter started saying, this opens the door for Cam Ward to be the starter. And that's all the national media was talking about. Right there, Robert Turbin. Well, he probably wasn't going to compete for the job, but now he's definitely not going to compete for the job. Excuse me, what? Did people actually think that Will Levis, the guy who was benched last year for Mason Rudolph, was going to be battling for the starting quarterback job this season with a guy that they just drafted number 1 overall and just paid $40 million to? I kept saying this the second they signed Brandon Allen. I remember it like it was yesterday. TD and I were doing the TD Power Hour out at the Assembly Food Hall during the SEC basketball tournament. And I kept saying, this is what you do in the NFL when you draft the guy number 1. And when they didn't have any interest in Sam Darnold and they didn't have any interest in Aaron Rodgers. And then we found out Geno Smith was on the move and they didn't have any interest in him. And there was no interest in Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson. It was obvious they were drafting Cam Ward. And once that happened, I said, here's what you do. You sign a veteran backup who knows what his role is, and you get rid of the young guy. That's what everybody does. The Chicago Bears got rid of Justin Fields. The Washington Commanders got rid of Sam Howell. That's what you do. And so when they signed Brandon Allen, I said, Brandon Allen is the backup quarterback. Brandon Allen is the veteran backup who poses zero threat to the young quarterback, knows the head coach's system, and makes almost no money. Will Levis is the dumbest quarterback in the entire NFL. You really think Brian Callahan, and I know Brian Callahan has done some really, really stupid things as head coach of the Titans. And I get the sense, and I like Callahan, but I get the sense that he's worried about all the wrong things anyways. But you think Brian Callahan is voluntarily going to play Will Levis again? He benched him last year. This was never a quarterback competition. This was the same quarterback competition that C.J. Stroud had to fight through against Davis Mills. It was never going to be Davis. The difference is Davis Mills isn't a quitter like Will Levis. The competition is Cam Ward ready week 1, which has absolutely nothing to do with Brandon Allen and has absolutely nothing to do with Will Levis. The competition is, do we get the benefit of sitting Cam Ward for a couple of weeks for the first month of the season to benefit his development? That's the competition. Cam Ward and Cam Ward's development and how it all plays into one another, not who's the better quarterback. That's not how this works. And so if the answer is yes, Cam should sit a couple of weeks or they get out there to training camp, Cam's not ready, then I always believed the entire time Brandon Allen starting at quarterback. I believed that if Levis was going to be on the team, week 1 at Denver, on the award-winning pregame show with Derek and Chris, that I'd be sitting there saying, all right, the inactives for the Titans today, third quarterback, Will Levis. Because I expected Brandon Allen to be the backup quarterback the entire time. I now see, the midday show was talking about, well, do the Titans have to go get a better backup now that Levis is out? They have a backup quarterback. It's Brandon Allen. The guy who was their backup quarterback yesterday. The guy who has been their backup quarterback since March. I said this the second Carolina clinched the worst record 2 years ago, giving the Chicago Bears the number 1 pick. I said Caleb Williams is the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears in 2024. And ESPN was, well, could they trade Caleb Williams and stay with Justin Fields? And could Justin Fields be the backup? No. And that's the same case here. They tried to keep Mason Rudolph. Last year, they made it clear with nothing to play for. In the last 3 weeks of the season, they benched Will Levis. Benched him. As in, he's out, he's in, and he's starting. Talking about Rudolph. It wasn't like Mason Rudolph was some young guy, so they wanted to play him to see if he was any good. It wasn't as if the way Mike Vrabel benched Marcus Mariota in October in favor of Ryan Tannehill because he was looking for a spark to turn the season around. There were 3 games left. They put Rudolph out there because they thought Will Levis sucked. That's why they did it. And so this idea that the national media and some Titans fans seem to believe that there was a Will Levis, Cam Ward mano-a-mano quarterback battle was a complete and total pipe dream. And when we look back on this, it was funny because last year when everybody was like, you don't understand Jared Rand Carthon, he'll show you, let Rand cook. By the way, chalk up another one for Rand. Let him cook, baby. But again, when this was going on last year, I kept saying, we are going to remember this era of Titan football. The Carthon era, the Callahan era, we are going to remember this the same way that we remember the Ken Wisenhunt era. And I'll be damned if this isn't Zach Mettenberger 2.0. That's who this is. I'll never forget the Titans drafted Marcus Mariota number 2 overall. It's the same as drafting Cam Ward. I know Cam was technically number 1, but might as well have been number 1, number 2. It's the same juice of the pick when you use it number 2 on a quarterback. And Zach Mettenberger said something stupid like, I'll battle him to the death. Sit down and shut up. Zach Mettenberger stayed on the team because Ken Wisenhunt loved him like a son. And now apparently he is Ken Wisenhunt's son-in-law. And as soon as Wisenhunt was gone, so was Zach Mettenberger, and we never heard from him ever again. Same thing's going to happen here. Now, what I think is kind of crazy is that Will Levis is BFFs with Bryce Wasserman, who's Amy's new son-in-law. And so, I don't know, maybe Bryce Wasserman is no longer friends with him and he's friends with Cam. Maybe he's jumped ship too. I don't know. But this was never a competition. This, again, who starts week 1? And I don't know if the Titans have decided Cam starts week 1 or not. A lot of people tell me when I say things like, hey, you do know that Lamar Jackson didn't start as a rookie in his first game. Patrick Mahomes didn't start as a rookie in his first game. Josh Allen didn't start as a rookie in his first game. People say, well, but Jared, they had better quarterbacks. Buffalo had Nathaniel Peterman. The question for Buffalo was, is Josh ready? Nah, we don't think Josh is ready. So Peterman starts. With the Titans, it was always, is Cam ready? Do we think that this is the right position? Or at least this is what it should be. With the Titans, you never know. They're so stupid. But do you think that they're ready? Do you think Cam's ready? If Cam's not ready, Brandon Allen starts. It's not who's better, Cam or Brandon Allen. Cam's definitely better than Brandon Allen. But it is Cam ready? But there was never going to be a competition between Brandon Allen and Will Levis. It was always going to be Brandon Allen. Just like last year, the Titans said there was a competition between Malik Willis and Mason Rudolph. There never was a competition, and there never was going to be a competition. So enough with this having anything to do with anything that matters with the Titans. Levis is a nobody to the Tennessee Titans. Again, he is and has as much importance in this organization as Zach Mettenberger. And you know what the common thread between Levis and Zach Mettenberger were as quarterbacks of the Titans? They were both posers who sucked. They were losers. Time to move off of that. 615-737-1025 here on the program. We'll get to your phones on this because a lot of you guys want to weigh in on this. 615-737-1025. And clearly the Titans are letting everybody know that this was Will Levis's decision to have the surgery the day before the opening of training camp. And I don't know what they're going to say tomorrow about it. Borgonzi and Brinker will meet with the media. I don't know what they're going to say, but it's obvious this was Levis's choice. And I'm just going to tell you, I can't tell you if this was a real bad shoulder injury and he just needed to go ahead and have it and he tried his hardest but I'm going to tell you what it looks like and what the optics say. And I think the optics are bad. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. The Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix is coming to the National Superspeedway Labor Day weekend at 102.5 The Game. Has your chance to win VIP tickets to the Indy Card race. Text in the keyword RACE, R-A-C-E, now to 615-737-1025 to be entered to win a pair of VIP tickets. Plus, this September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinix Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas in Midtown. Get your tickets at rockthecradle.org. Oh, Derek. Come on, Derek. You know, again, he's like, I'm just going to say it. I think the reason that this happened is because he lost a starting job. And so do you think he quit? I'm not going to say that. You know, I'm not going to say that simply because last year when he went out there, he did compete. And I heard that and I thought, oh, Derek, So last year when he was given the starting job with no opposition, even though he had won 3 games as a rookie and really hadn't played that well, he was totally fine. He competed last year when it was his job. Now that he's not going to be the starting quarterback because he was so bad last year, and they signed somebody else to be the backup, and they paid someone else $40 million to be the starting quarterback this year, he's decided on the eve of training camp to have shoulder surgery and miss the year. He quit. You can say it, Derek. You didn't quit. They put you down the depth chart as far as you could go, D-Mace. And you kept doing your job, kept showing up, kept working out, kept getting coached, and now you're in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. And so I can't tell you if this was a poor choice on Will Levis's part or not. The Titans are clearly not happy about it. I have a hard time with so you told the team you weren't hurt last year when it was your job, but now that it's not your job, you're now worried about your career and you're going to have the surgery. Got it. That said, whoever gave Levis the advice to have this surgery, I think gave him bad advice, the way this has all gone down, because the optics of it are horrible. And the optics have always been a problem for Will Levis. Going back to his fall in the 2023 draft, Will Levis was good enough to be drafted in the first round. His talent was good enough to be drafted in the first round. And yet, he fell. Every team passed on him, including you. You took a guard overtaking Will Levis. And so Will Levis is going to have this shoulder surgery because he wants a second chance somewhere else. He knows he's not going to get it here because Cam Ward is ultimately going to be the starting quarterback. So he'd like to go somewhere else and try to have a career renaissance, a la Sam Darnold. The problem is the optics are so bad surrounding Will Levis and surrounding this, again, on the eve of training camp. I don't know if another team will take that opportunity on him. That's how bad this is. I mean, I will tell you, I have had football people today that have texted me. I mean, people who have spent years and years and years, decades in the game. Multiple football people have texted me, and they have said, what the hell's going on here? And again, this is a guy who, regardless of whether or not it was fair, fell in the draft because teams looked at him and said, I'm not feeling him. I don't like the fit. We played the cut when he did the Manning passing TV show or whatever. And his question for Peyton and Eli was, how do you separate marketing from playing quarterback? And it's like, oh God, even Peyton rolled his eyes and was like, well, you know, you really should focus on football and then let the commercials do the talking. Ha, ha, ha. So the optics have always been bad for Levis. The optics of this, I'm just telling you, this looks like he admitted to everybody, yeah, I'm a quitter. I can't compete with Cam Ward, so I'm not gonna. I'll have the surgery. I don't know who gives that guy a second chance. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com here, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on the program. One texter says, and our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com says, his agent 100% set it up this way. He's probably known it all along. Well, I would just say this. I don't know if Will Levis's agent is the one pulling the strings here. To me, this is a bad idea. Like, if you're Will Levis, the old saying is the cream rises to the top in the NFL. So you'd figure at some point he probably would have gotten a shot here. Or maybe not. And then they would have moved him because somebody would have needed a backup quarterback at some point. Ask Malik Willis how that's working out. The change of scenery, getting an opportunity, not playing for a dumpster fire of an organization, and all of a sudden Malik Willis doesn't look like a bum. I don't think Levis's agent said, you know what? Have that shoulder surgery so that now everybody who already didn't like you and who already passed on you 2 years ago, and you've already gotten the coach that drafted you and the general manager that drafted you fired, now they're going to take a chance on you. Yeah, I don't know about that. One texter says, Jared, say what you will about Levis. It's obviously time to move on, but why did you take a dig at Mark Stoops? He's done a good job for what the Kentucky program is, and of course he's going to defend the guy he coached, no matter how wrong he is. Mark Stoops is a joke. Again, that's who has Will Levis at quarterback. Not the winning coaches, Mark Stoops. One texter says, let's say you're entirely correct about Will Levis. And again, this is the idea that I think Will Levis is a quitter. And I think Will Levis is a loser. And I don't think you can win with losers. So let's say you're entirely correct about Will Levis. It speaks that this is the me-first culture that we live in. Then you draft a quarterback that quit on his team at halftime. This me-before-the-team attitude is doomed to failure. So I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another on the Cam Ward halftime thing at Miami. I mean, he wanted to get the record, and so he did, and then he sat out, and I thought it was kind of weak. I thought he probably should have played the whole game, but that seems to be the going rate. I actually did have a scout 2 years ago when Levis took over for Tannehill say to me at a Louisville football game, an NFL scout said to me, he said, yeah, we call him Will Leftus because he didn't play in the bowl game. And I'm like, bro, it's 2023. Nobody plays in the bowl games anymore anyway. And at the same time, now that Will Levis has quit on his team the day before the opening of training camp, hard not to think, hey, what'd that scout say? Will left us. And he's not wrong about Cam Ward. And I'll say this about the Titans culture. The Titans love things that I don't give a rat's ass about, like smack talk. They think smack talk from the head coach on down is a good thing. Roger McCreary went on NFL Network last week and said his goal this season is to talk more smack. Boy, I'll tell you, that's a great goal, Roger. So the Titans have a terrible culture right now. Terrible. But it is all the me first stuff. Jeffrey Simmons, he doesn't need to go to OTAs. He's too good with his 5 sacks. L'Jarius Sneed, Levis, oh, I have to work hard for the job? Pass. No, thank you. And I do think that that is a culture that is doomed to failure. And I don't know Ward well enough to tell you which side of that coin Cam Ward's on. And I also don't know Cam Ward well enough to know if all the placating they've done to him, we're going to give you Warren Moon's number. Do you even know who Warren Moon is? No. Okay, we're going to unretire Warren Moon's number for you. I don't know if that is going to play into this culture of losers that the Titans have created. But it does kind of feel like reality that that's who the Titans are. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number. Speaking of the Titans and this loser culture, they dropped a 30-minute video today. I watched it, so you don't have to. But there was a one part in this, speaking of Levis and the quarterbacks, that I could not get over the irony given what had just been announced an hour before this video dropped. And we'll get to that next here on the program. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Also, let me say this. Today, it is the Monday of training camp, which is usually our day for expectations, 3 o'clock. The official Stillman & Company expectations for the 2025 Titans season. Will Levis is the main story today, but that is not going to overshadow what we do every year. So we will get to that as well. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. That was the new behind-the-scenes video that the Titans put out today. The Titans of Tennessee. It was 25 minutes. If you remember the last time they put out a Titans of Tennessee video, Denard Wilson taught us how to spell Titan, and we made fun of that. Today, I watched all 25 minutes, so you don't have to. So we will get into the Titans of Tennessee video because I'll just put it to you like this. I texted Katie Reese, who's Floyd's daughter-in-law, and Ian, and I was like, oh my God, the old man would be so embarrassed if he watched this thing. But that was Callahan talking about the quarterback room. So at 9 a.m. this morning, it came out that Will Levis was quitting on the football team and that the Titans weren't totally on board with this, that Levis had made this decision with his team, his agents, his doctors, and whatever. And at 10 o'clock, they released this behind-the-scenes hype video in which Brian Callahan's talking about how great this quarterback room is because everybody is competing, but they're all working together. An hour before this came out, Will Levis decided to quit on the team. Anybody else see the irony in that? I'm watching this on my couch today, and I'm laughing out loud. This is coming from someone whose 7-month-old got them sick this week and have been on my ass since Wednesday of last week, really Tuesday night during the All-Star game. I started shriveling up in blankets because I had the chills, and I've been on my ass all week. So I've watched the Netflix show, The Quarterback, with Jared Goff and Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins, and I'm watching Joe Burrow and just how no nonsense, no sugarcoating, no BS Joe Burrow is. And I think to myself, man, I wish my quarterback was like that. And here's Levis again. Oh, yeah, I might not even be the backup. Now I'll have surgery. George in Murfreesboro says, was the shoulder not hurt during minicamp and when he was in California over the summer, it all of a sudden started bothering him again? What a loser. Ran Carthon was a joke. George says in all caps, a joke. I mean, think about all the guys Ran Carthon has brought in or the guys that he signed and the guys that L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, this time last year, Rand was doing interviews talking about, well, Jeff Simmons came in my office and said the right side of the offensive line was, really getting good. And you people ate it up. I'm like, oh, yeah, you have fun with PT. A joke. We will forever talk about the Ran Carthon era because it was but that's going to be the gold standard. How Amy got hoodwinked into that will still be an all-timer for me. Chip says, Jared, you're 100% right. Brandon Allen was brought in to be the backup. I saw that, and I'm like, when they signed Brandon Allen, I'm like, he's the backup. He's the backup. Tim Boyle's a camp arm, and Levis is, he's here until we figure out how to move him. We'll move him in a fifth and get a fourth back. Like, that's what they do. And I guess either nobody wanted him or maybe the Titans didn't want to trade him, or I don't know. But that's what they do. He was Sam Howell. And the Commanders moved off of Sam Howell to make room for Jaden Daniels. They could have kept Sam Howell to be the backup for a very cheap price, but they didn't because that's not what you do. You go get a veteran guy who is no threat to the young quarterback, and his job is to mentor the young quarterback. Remember when Ryan Tannehill said his job wasn't to mentor Malik Willis, and people got their panties all up in a bunch? And I said, he's right. That's not his job. His job is to go beat the Colts. His job is to go beat Jacksonville, to go beat Houston. Like, that's his job. Well, Brandon Allen, when he signed, his job is to be the mentor to Cam Ward. That's what he signed for. Mike says, the timing of the decision by Levis is definitely a bad look. It seems unlikely that he just learned that he needs surgery. Again, to me, this is total duck theory. If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Will Levis was going to be competing for the backup job. Forget about what Adam Schefter's saying or anybody else. Albert Breer already came out today, and I think Albert Breer is the best reporter in the NFL. Albert Breer already came out today and said it wasn't as if Levis was getting as many reps as Cam Ward. He wasn't. Levis was going to be battling for the backup job. And I think Levis was going to lose the backup job to Brandon Allen. Instead of dealing with that embarrassment, because Will Levis cares about what people think. Will Levis decided to have the surgery, so now he can say, oh, I was hurt. That's why I sucked last year, and that's why I'm not going to be third string this year. One texter says, playing devil's advocate. Isn't it smart for Levis to realize that if he is genuinely hurt and he goes out there in the preseason, which is his opportunity to get a second chance, and he underperforms because of an injury, that he probably can't come back from that? Better to get healthy and rehab than have a comeback tour when you're not healthy. So going back to that quarterback show, Kirk Cousins got hurt. His elbow and his shoulder got all jacked up, and he tried to play through it, and he went from lighting up the scoreboard to almost as bad as Will Levis. In fact, according to PFF, the only quarterback who threw the ball into danger more than Levis was actually Cousins. And as I was watching that Netflix docuseries over the weekend, I was wondering in my head, do I have sympathy for Cousins? Cousins got hurt, but Cousins doesn't want to tell the coaches that he got hurt. He doesn't want to take himself out. He doesn't want to. Well, Atlanta missed the playoffs by a game last year. And if Kirk Cousins had gone to the coaches when he got hurt in the New Orleans game and said, I'm hurt, and Michael Penix had gone in, there's a chance the Atlanta Falcons are in the playoffs. If Will Levis got hurt in the Miami game and he told the coaches, I'm okay, and he played in the Indy game, and then he sat out the 2 games after or 3 games after the Indy game, and then he came back and said, I'm okay. But now that he's not the starting quarterback anymore, he's going to say, well, let me get healed up so that I can go showcase for other teams in a couple of years. Do you want that guy in your organization? You're the 49ers. You always bring in these guys to be the backups. When Mac Jones leaves, do you want to bring him in there to do that? Or would you take somebody who's not going to lie to the team? Brian says, what team we've got? Levis is out there doing this BS. Snead is being out for practice, but he'll be game ready because he's in the best shape ever, according to him. What a freaking joke. I'll tell you again, when the face of your team, the leader of your team is Jeffrey, it's never my fault Simmons, you know you've got a culture problem. And we keep seeing time and time again, culture issue after culture issue. And the Titans keep combating that by saying, no. We've got this great new offseason program, the 4 H's. We've learned about this. We know each other's heartbreaks. We're brothers. We're a closer team. That offseason program, it's really, really important, right? Was Jeffrey Simmons there for it? Oh, no. Oh, okay. It's a joke. Titans have horrible culture. Horrible culture. Matthew says, never had questions about culture when Vrabel was the coach. Ding, 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 ding. But these guys, Carthon and Callahan, they didn't care about holding people accountable. They cared about kissing everybody and patting them on the butt. And this is what you get. It's like letting your kids do whatever they want to do. That doesn't make them disciplined children. Same thing here. Okay, the Monday of training camp is always the day that we set the official expectations for the season. You know how we do this. We break the games down into 5 categories. Last year, we were the biggest haters in the world because we expected 5 wins. They won 3. So how many wins should we expect this year for the Titans? We will make it official, and we will do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. The big story today, Will Levis opting for shoulder surgery instead of what I think was trying to compete for the backup job with Brandon Allen and losing. Will Levis has decided, no, my shoulder injury from October, the one that I suffered in the Dolphins game when I took the injection and was willing to go back in before the coach said, don't come back in the game. The one where I played the next week, told everyone I was healthy. Then after the game said, oh, no, my shoulder still hurts. Sat out a couple of weeks, then went back in there. Yeah, that shoulder injury. I know I went through the entire offseason program, but I decided to have shoulder surgery on the eve of training camp. Loser. So that's the big news. But that does not change what we do on this program. And the Stillman and Company program, and we are entering our 10th year. This is our 10th football season of Jared the GM / Stillman and Company. We probably do need to have a party next month to celebrate 10 years. In fact, we're going to have one. I've decided. We're going to have a 10-year celebration. I don't know how and when we'll do it. I don't know if it will be open to the public or not. Probably not, but we'll do that. But one thing I've always done, on the Monday of the week that training camp opens, is we've set the official expectations for the Tennessee Titans. Now, I can say throughout the course of the summer and the offseason and the spring before the draft and free agency and everything else, the Titans should be this, the Titans should be that. But it comes to the official expectations, which, again, it's a mathematic formula that we have used over the years to come up with how much we should expect the Titans to win. You know how we do this. But in case you forgot, here's what we do. We take every game over the course of the season, the 17 games the Titans have, and we split them up into 5 separate categories that will yield us with 2 results. We don't do ties. We have games they will win, like they're playing the Sisters of the Poor that way, they'll win that game. They'll have the games they should win. They'll have the toss-up games. They'll have the games they probably should lose. And then they have the games they will lose. We take the will wins and the should wins, and we put that in the winning column. We take the will loses and the should loses. We put that in the losing column, and then we split the toss-ups, and that gives us our expectations. So without further ado, the first category. Games the 2025 Tennessee Titans, looking at the schedule, will win. The end. There is not a game on this schedule that I can look at and say the Titans will win that game. I think that's the first time that we've done this, that's been the case. Now, every year there's always a game we say the Titans will win, like a Jacksonville game or a New York Jets game where Zach Wilson and Corey Davis went off. There's a game like that every year that they lose. And then there's a game against Kansas City or somebody every year. We say they'll lose, that they win. I'm sure last year we said they were going to lose at the Texans, and they won at the Texans. But as far as will win is concerned, I got nothing. Should win. Games they should win this season. Number 1, at home against the New Orleans Saints. That's it for the should win. So no games that they will win. I can't be certain they're going to beat the Saints, but I do feel like the Saints, who aren't very good, they're going to be playing Tyler Shuck at quarterback at Nissan Stadium. The Titans should beat New Orleans. Toss-ups. Indianapolis at home, at the Cardinals, at the Raiders, Patriots at home. Everybody else will tell you that the Patriots should win that game. I'm going to say that's a toss-up. I am not a fan of this New England ball club. I don't think they're well put together at all. Toss-up. Jacksonville at home, on the road at Cleveland. Again, I don't know how you could put Cleveland on the road in the should win category when Cleveland has much better players than you do. So Cleveland, that's at best a toss-up. Games they should lose. At Houston, they should lose that. Houston at home. At Indy. Chargers at home. Seattle at home. At San Francisco. At Jacksonville. I thought about maybe putting at Jacksonville into the toss-up category. Here's the problem I have. It's the same problem I have when it comes to Cleveland. They have just much better players than you do. Who's better, Cam Ward or Trevor Lawrence? It's Trevor Lawrence. At this point, it's Trevor Lawrence. Who's better, your best pass rusher or Josh Hines-Allen on their team? Josh Hines-Allen. Who's better, Calvin Ridley or Brian Thompson or Brian Thomas Jr.? Brian Thomas. They have Travis Hunter. You don't have anybody like Travis Hunter on your team. So I can't put on the road at Jacksonville. I can't put that as a toss-up. Texans, I think we can all agree the Texans should beat the crap out of the Titans. On the road at Indy. I mean, I can't even remember the last time the Titans beat Indy at Indy. I think J-Rob and Vrabel were still running the operation when that happened. At San Francisco, last year and the year before that, that would be a will-lose game on the road at San Francisco. San Francisco's had a lot of changes. I still think they're much better than you. You should lose that one. And then will lose. They will lose to the Broncos week 1 at home. They are not going to lose. They are not going to win that game. Denver is one of the hardest places to play in the entire NFL. That crowd is going to be super fired up after the season they had last year. They have a top 10 defense. You will be playing with a rookie quarterback on the road with a silent count. They have a top 10 defense with all-pro pass rushers, all-pro defensive linemen, the reigning defensive player of the year. Sean Payton is the coach. Bo Nix impressed last year. You're not going to beat the Broncos. That's the first game you will lose. You will lose to the Rams in week 2. People forget about the way the Rams played down the stretch last year once Jared Verse and Braden Fisk really got rolling. But they almost went to Philadelphia and beat the Eagles in the divisional round of the playoffs in the snow. A dome team from Los Angeles almost went to Philly and gave them the closest ball game Philadelphia had down the stretch at all last year. You think you're going to beat Matthew Stafford at home? Granted, you're playing at home. You think you're going to beat Matthew Stafford with Cam Ward at quarterback in week 2, and they've got Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. Not going to happen. You'll lose to the Rams, and then you play the Chiefs. I mean, do I need to go into detail on the Chiefs? You will lose to the Chiefs in what will be a Chief home game at Nissan Stadium. So, just to recap, will win, nothing. Should win, Saints, toss-up, Indy, Cardinals, Raiders, Patriots, Jacksonville at home, at Cleveland. Should lose, at Houston, at Indy, Chargers at home, Texans at home, Seahawks at home, at San Francisco, at Jacksonville, and you will lose at Denver, the Rams, and the Chiefs. So what do? We take the will wins and the should wins. That's 1, the Saints. We take the toss-ups, 6. Split the baby. It's 3-3. That's a 4-win season. The expectations for the Titans should be 4 wins. Woof. And I remember last year, I was a hater because I said 5. I said the expectations last year were 5. Again, this is a mathematical formula. We just went through it. I said the expectations were 5. Ian said his expectations last year with his list were 4. This year, they won 3. This year, 4 wins. 615-737-1025. Your reaction. And I have a simple question. For the people that I'm sure don't like it, I don't know. I actually think most people that listen to this show are probably thinking, yep, that probably sounds about right. But my question is this. If you are mad, based on what? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That was Roger McCreary on NFL Network. I love the fact when it's like, and people, they just don't respect the Titans. Well, you are the worst team in the NFL. I want you to know that. This reminds me it's so funny how we got to where we are today, where Jeffrey Simmons and Roger McCreary last week are going on NFL Network and just bitching about how nobody ever pays any attention to the Titans and nobody respects the Titans. When, again, they are the worst team in ball, the reigning worst team in the NFL. I remember when Vrabel was the coach, and the Titans were 2-2 in 2018, but they had beaten the Philadelphia Eagles and somebody else who was really good, Houston, in back-to-back weeks. And the Eagles had just won the Super Bowl, and the Titans beat them in overtime. And Taylor Lewan said something like, now they'll start paying attention to us. And Vrabel was asked a question in the press conference that week after they beat the Eagles about the team earning respect. And Vrabel looked at whoever said it and said, respect from who? And I was like, oh, God. I was like, this guy's about to get it from Vrabel. And as somebody who's gotten it from Vrabel before, it's not that bad. But every now and then, when you say something like that to Vrabel, it's like, oh, boy, here goes Vrabel. And Vrabel talked about we should never care about what TV thinks of us. Vrabel leaves, and now all anybody does, we're going to show them. Let's talk that. Let's keep that to ourselves. And then after the fact, we can say nobody believed, but let's not get up there today and say, nobody respects us. Well, maybe win more than 3 games, and maybe they'll give you a little respect. So again, the expectations this year for me are 4 wins. I think they should beat the Saints at home, and then they'll win half their toss-ups. Indy at home, New England at home, Jacksonville at home, and then at the Cardinals, at the Raiders, at Cleveland. I have not looked at the text line, though I will get to that in a second. But I do feel like most people who are listening to the show, if this was a year ago, I feel like people would have said, oh, Jared, how can you say, you hater? You'll see. I think most people listening to the show hear a 4-win expectation, given how bad this team is. And they say, yep, that sounds about right. But if you are mad about it, can I ask how? The Vegas over-under is 5.5, which is tied for the worst in the NFL with Cleveland, who has a better roster. You don't have Myles Garrett on your team. And New Orleans, which is the one game that I think you should win. Do you believe after last year that you have a smarter coach than everybody else who's going to work magic when last year's magic was kind of embarrassing? But Jared, we have Cam Ward, a rookie quarterback with no support. 1 receiver, no tight end, a so-so running game, an offensive line where for the 8th year in a row, we'll see, and a defense whose leader decided to miss the entire offseason program, and all he does is complain about how he never gets sacks and how people get on him for never getting sacks. This team is awful, and I think most people are expecting it that way. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025, and our phone line is by WilsonCountyHoney.com. One texter says, so if the Titans win 6 or 7 games, is that good enough to save Brian Callahan's job? What would be considered a successful season in 2025? So it's a very loaded question when it comes to Callahan, because I'm not the one who's making the call on Brian Callahan. Amy Adams Strunk is. And if there's anything we've learned about Amy Adams Strunk over the years, it's who knows how she actually feels when it comes to winning and losing. You know what's crazy? 2 years ago, Vrabel's last season, 2023, they won 6 games. Again, the expectation here is 4. The expectation then was not. But the expectation is 4. If they win 6, that would be exceeding my expectations. But do you guys remember how miserable that last Vrabel season was? That was a 6-win season. Now, if we look at the year and we think, well, 6 wins, we thought going into it to be 4, I don't know if that's enough for me to save Callahan's job. But if the expectation is 4 and you win 6 or 7, I mean, that is probably the best you can do with that talent on the team. Again, 1 should win game, no will win games, and 6 toss-ups. That's 7. If you win 7, that means you won all your toss-ups and you won the 1 game you should win. You shouldn't beat the Chargers right now. You shouldn't. DK and Mount Juliet says, Callahan looks dead in the water, and the front office didn't do much to help him. He may not be a good head coach, but it looks like Brinker wants him out of the picture because he didn't have a part in his hiring. Apparently, Brinker did have a part in his hiring. I do think Brinker wants Callahan out of there. I do think Brinker's going to get Callahan out of there. But I actually think that Brinker and Borgonzi did more for Callahan this year than Rand Carthon did for him last year. For starters, let's just say quarterback. Will Levis sucks, and Will Levis has the heart of a loser, as we all learned today when he decided he didn't want to compete for the backup quarterback job, because that's what he was going to be competing for with Brandon Allen, the backup quarterback job. He decided he didn't want to compete today because he's got the heart of a loser. So that was the quarterback Callahan was given last year. And don't even get me started on the right tackle position last year. I mean, J.C. Latham is a legitimate NFL right tackle. And they've got a left tackle. Well, Jared, Dan Moore wasn't that good. Dan Moore was good enough to start for 4 years in Pittsburgh, and they made the playoffs 3 out of those 4 years. That's better than PT. So I absolutely think that Brinker has done more for Callahan and giving him a chance to keep his job this year than Rand ever did for Callahan last year. Rand went out, traded a 3rd-round pick for an injured corner who got involved, allegedly, in a car dealership shooting. Let's go to Matt, who's up next here on our program at 615-737-1025. Matt, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
Yes, sir. Jared, I just got a question. What has Myles Garrett done for the Cleveland Browns that you keep bringing up that Jeffrey Simmons has not done for the Tennessee Titans? I don't understand how you can compare we ain't got Myles Garrett on our team when the Cleveland Browns have not done anything either, even having Myles Garrett.
So,
also,
hold on.
Have you not heard of a – okay, go ahead.
So you think that Jeffrey Simmons is as good as Myles Garrett?
I think I'm not saying as good. Myles Garrett's a Hall of Famer, obviously, already. But what has he done to carry Cleveland anywhere?
Okay, so Jeffrey Simmons had 5 sacks last year and has a career of 31.5 sacks. Simmons has never had, in a single season, 10 sacks. The most he's ever had is 8.5. Myles Garrett has 102 sacks in his career. In fact, Myles Garrett hasn't had under 10 sacks since his rookie year. Everything since then, 13.5, 10, 12, 16, 16, 14, 14. He has been the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. He is a 4-time first-team All-Pro. That is what Myles Garrett has done. Jeffrey Simmons has been to a couple Pro Bowls.
Not got nowhere by having him.
Well, again, I mean, when it comes to Cleveland and it comes to what you were 5 years ago is not what you are today. I mean, again, the argument then you're making is that Harold Landry is more valuable to the Titans than Myles Garrett is to Cleveland, because with Myles Garrett, all they've done is get to the divisional round of the playoffs, and Harold Landry was on the Titans when they got to an AFC Championship game. Now I'll ask you this. Who's better, Myles Garrett or Harold Landry?
Well, obviously, Myles Garrett.
Okay. But according to your logic, it doesn't matter because Myles Garrett has been on the Browns and they haven't won anything after their owner, not Myles Garrett, gave Deshaun Watson that big contract.
I understood. And then also I want to ask you, obviously in college, you got freshman quarterback that come up because it's not scheme-wise. Freshman or first-year rookie quarterbacks in the NFL always amaze people. Well, most of them. Obviously, Will Levis was not one of them. He was drafted also in the 2nd round. when you take a number one quarterback, number one overall, CJ at Houston.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to let you go here
Awesome.
because C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels had nice rookie years. I get it. That is the exception, not the rule. And not only that, those guys were on better teams. You don't have Terry McLaurin on your team. You don't. And not only that, those guys were better prospects than Cam Ward. Cam Ward went number one because there was nobody else to go number one. Jaden Daniels went number two because Caleb Williams was in the same class. Go look at any list that any of these guys that grade quarterbacks, go look at it, and I'm telling you, they did not think that Cam Ward was the type of prospect that Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud were. Maybe they're wrong, but they think that Cam Ward is behind J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. And Bo Nix went 12th last year. More of your phones, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. Plus, we do have Ian's expectations. Remember last year, Ian was the one that said 4 wins. He was the closest. We'll get to that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? Well, if a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, that's because it is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover their cost for the discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. And you all hear me talking about my friends at Hiller all the time. But see, this is why I trust Hiller in my home, because they're not going to charge me for something that I don't need. And when I have Hiller come to my house, they fix it one time and it's done. And that I like. So schedule online by visiting happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. There you go. That was Ian. I don't know where Ian's getting a should win on Cleveland. But last year, I was the hater because I said expectations, I think, were 5 wins. And then Ian did the list, and he had it at 4. And I said, well, if Ian says 4, when this team was just getting their rear end spanked every week, I was like, hey, Ian was the one who saw it coming the best. Ian's got a should win on the road at Cleveland. I'm a little surprised by that. But that expectation model is 5 wins. Mine is 4. Ian's is 5. Also, by the way, Ian's breakdown right there or Bill Belichick's audiobook, which one puts you to sleep faster? I love you, Ian. All right, let's get back to your phones. As promised, the Wizard is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Wizard, go.
Jared, longtime caller, first-time listener. How you doing today? Hey, I just want to call and say I think you're over-projecting even on 4 wins. I mean, this roster is dirt. 2 wins if you're lucky, only because a broken clock's right twice a day. Yeah, just overall. And then it's like, what do you do with Callahan? Because I don't even know how you can blame the guy for what's happening with the roster is unwinnable.
Well, I definitely think you can look at Callahan and ask yourself, thank you for the call. I think you can look at Callahan and say, you could have won more than 3 games last year. Like that, you could have won more than 3 games. Are you part of the solution or are you part of the problem? And when I see Jeffrey Simmons just making every excuse in the book, and I see guys like Roger McCreary going on NFL Network and saying, we're not respected enough, and I'm going to start trash talking this year. That's a big goal of mine. I'm like, what is Callahan teaching these guys? When you don't change your coaching staff and you don't get better. Again, that hasn't happened yet, but he didn't change the offensive coordinator. He didn't change the defensive coordinator. Didn't change the quarterback's coach. Didn't change any of that. Because Callahan, his coaches, you'll see. You got to go. That's how the league works. You got to go. You got to show progress. You got to go. I think it's pretty telling, though, that the Titans, the ESPN top 10 list, where they went over, again, this isn't ESPN's list, but this is what league executives, coaches, and scouts think. They had 1 player make a top 10 list, Jeffrey Simmons. He was the 4th defensive tackle. They had 2 honorable mentions, Peter Skoronski and L'Jarius Sneed, and the little blurb on Sneed was, maybe Kansas City knew something everybody else didn't. And then Kevin Zeitler and Calvin Ridley received votes. That's it. That's awful. That is awful. And so if you think this team's going to be that bad, Callahan's going to get fired. That's how it works in the NFL. If you were to talk to Callahan today and you had a crystal ball, you were a psychic, and you said to him like, hey, dude, you're going to win 3 games this year. He'd get on the phone and say, yeah, babe, put the house on the market. Let's just go ahead and get busy. Let's look at school somewhere else. Because Johnny and Joey aren't going back next year. And that's life in the NFL. You know, I think it's funny because Floyd used to always tell me things that Bud Grant would say, the Hall of Fame coach for the Vikings. And Floyd used to say, Bud Grant used to say that coaching in the NFL is the best job in the world when you win. With the implication being that when you lose, it's absolutely miserable. Well, it looks like they're going to lose. One texter says, not sure why Titans players are saying they need to be respected when they don't even respect themselves enough to win more than 1 or 2 games a year. The entire franchise is a laughingstock and has been a laughingstock since 2008. They drafted Vince Young, laughingstock. Drafted Will Levis, laughingstock. Drafted Cam Ward, laughingstock. I think the Titans have been a laughingstock ever since they fired John Robinson when they were sitting in first place in 2022. And you can say, well, J-Rob sucked. He did this and he did that. And they were in first place and they had won the division in back-to-back years. Now we're talking about, are they going to win 4 games this year or are they going to win 5 games this year? That's where we sit. Eli from Smyrna says, I'm not mad at you, Jared, for the expectations, but I am mad because I don't want to see my team suck. Even the get-in cost for the Titans games are saying they're going to suck. What's the get-in cost for the Chiefs game? Like, I want every Titan fan out there to know this, because there will be some Titan fans when the Chief game happens that will say, real Titan fans support the team and don't sell your tickets. Screw that. Real Titan fans have their heads screwed on right. Know the team is gouging them with PSLs at the new stadium. Know the team has no direction right now. And if that's the case, go make your money on the Chief game. You heard it from me first. Corey in Clarksville says, isn't it sad that the national media talks more about Jackson Dart than Cam Ward, and the Giants have 3 primetime games? Well, you know why that is. They're in New York. That's why. That's like, isn't it sad that the Milwaukee Brewers have a better record than the New York Yankees, but they talk more about the New York Yankees than the Milwaukee Brewers? Well, I mean, come on, it's the New York Yankees. So when you're like, they talk more about Jackson Dart, it's the Giants. Like, if the Cowboys had drafted Cam Ward number 1 overall, Cam Ward be talked about every day. The reason nobody talks about Cam Ward on TV is because nobody cares about the Titans, and the Titans are so irrelevant right now. Again, we live in Nashville. We talk Titans every day. And I'm saying we, but I want the Titans to be good. I am a Titan fan. I'm thinking they're going to win 4 games this year. That's why nobody talks about them. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's why nobody does it. Jared from Springfield says, oh my God, we found somebody to call in who says that Jeffrey Simmons is as good as Myles Garrett. You know what's crazy? I feel like for the most part, and I don't think that one caller represents the entire fan base, but I do feel as if most people hear that, well, we got Simmons, and Titan fans are like, oh, God, I don't claim that guy right there. I mean, I'm not. Myles Garrett is a $40 million a year player. Myles Garrett demanded a trade. People were calling, and Cleveland was like, no. If Simmons demanded a trade, teams would be like, we'll give you a third. How about that? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, there was a player released yesterday who I thought, should the Titans have interest? Should this be a move that they make? And then I dug a little deeper. And I know they won't make it, but I'm still not against it. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. 1025 The Game and Souls for Souls have teamed up for a back-to-school fundraiser. Souls for the 615 to provide new shoes for kids experiencing homelessness in Nashville. Help a child in Middle Tennessee step into the new school year with confidence by donating $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes. For more information and to donate, visit theGameNashville.com/shoes. Souls for the 615 is sponsored by Messero in 12 South. Go check them out for handcrafted cocktails, bold plates, and great happy hour along with elevated hospitality. So training camp gets started on Wednesday, and so you'll tune in right here. They'll have player interviews on the Chase and Big Joe show and the latest updates as the Titans prepare for next season. So yesterday I was a little surprised when I saw that the Seattle Seahawks were dumping Noah Fant, the former first rounder of the Broncos, who was part of the Russell Wilson trade, and I thought was a solid player in Seattle, a real starting tight end, and they were just dumping him on the eve of training camp, releasing Noah Fant, who was due $8 million and change, and saying, nah, we don't need him anymore. And I'm thinking, why in the world would they do that? Why would they do that? And then I saw, well, they have Elijah Arroyo, and they really like Elijah Arroyo. And remember, it's $8 million. The cap's fake, but the money is real. And so if you've listened to this show at all, you know the disdain that I have for Chig Okonkwo. 2 years ago, when the Titans, I thought, prematurely gave Chig the starting job, I was at training camp. Chig had a good training camp. Gentry Estes said to me at the Tennessee, he goes, I don't know why everybody's getting so excited about Chig Okonkwo. And I was like, hey, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. And then Chig forgot how to catch the ball. Then last year I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, that's just not going to happen. And Chig stunk last year. And here we are, same exact spot. Chig starting tight end, even though Chig sucks. And here's Noah Fant out there. And I said, Noah Fant's got to be better than Chig. So I pulled up their stats over the last 3 years. They're pretty much the same player, at least statistically speaking. Chig's played in 51 games. Noah Fant's played in 48. That's roughly the same. Chig has 138 catches. Noah Fant has 130 catches. A difference of 8 catches. Chig has 57 more receiving yards. Yards per reception, Noah Fant 10.8, Chig 10.6. Chig has 6 touchdowns. Noah Fant has 5. So over the last 3 years, Noah Fant and Chig are essentially the same player, at least statistically speaking. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, Noah Fant is a better player than Chig. At least he was last year. He was ranked the 22nd, graded the 22nd tight end in the NFL. Chig was graded as the 32nd tight end in the entire NFL. The Titans aren't going to do this. And here's why the Titans aren't going to do this. They're not going to do it because, again, if Noah Fant was scheduled to make $8 million, then his camp's probably out there right now looking for 6. The Titans aren't paying Chig anything. The production is roughly the same. Again, PFF says Fant was a better player, and my guess is the reason that Fant doesn't have as many catches or, basically has the same amount of catches and the same amount of yards and not more is because he had to share the football with a Tyler Lockett who wasn't an old pawpaw, a DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba over the last 3 years, whereas Chig Okonkwo's been on a team with one wide receiver each of the last couple of years. I think I do it because I can't stand Chig. And Josh Wiley's never healthy. But if the Titans were going to do this, they would have just traded for Noah Fant. If the Titans were going to do this, if the Titans saw, oh my God, Noah Fant, we can go get Noah Fant. If they were going to do that, they would have traded Chig or Wiley straight up to Seattle for him. And Seattle would have done it because they would have said, okay, we'll take Josh Wiley. We're going to cut him anyways. We'll take Josh Wiley and he's the backup for $800,000 or whatever it is that Wiley's supposed to make. But at least statistically speaking, Chig actually is better than Noah Fant. And Lord, I can't stand Chig. But that's what you have at tight end. 615-737-1025. Back to your phones. One texter says, my expectation is for the number one overall pick in back-to-back years. This time, though, the Titans will trade it. No, they would not take a quarterback because next year's quarterbacks are not good. Now, let's just play pretend world here for a second, if I may. Let's say the Titans end up with the number one overall pick in next year's draft. And let's say Arch Manning declares for the draft and is all that in a bag of chips this year at at Texas. Again, we've seen this happen before. Guy is supposed to be a great player. He finally gets out there in college football and dominates. Cam Newton. Let's say that's Arch. Arch gets out there, dominates. Arch declares for the draft. Arch is available, and you've drafted Cam Ward. I'm telling you right now, unless Cam Ward's proven to me that he's Jaden Daniels, I'm getting Arch. But you're probably right. They'll probably end up with the number one pick if they do, and if Arch is there, then they'll trade it and somebody else will draft it. But there was a lot of ifs in that scenario with Arch. I have no idea if the quarterback class next year is going to be any good. You know, Trevor thinks that Cade Klubnik and Lenoris Sellers and somebody else are all better than Cam Ward. Garrett Nussmeier. He thinks Garrett Nussmeier is better than Cam Ward. There's going to be a lot of people that think Drew Aller is very good. I don't like Drew Aller. Every Penn State game I've ever watched, he's thrown for like 72 yards. But I do think that there's a legitimate chance that the Titans end up with the number one or number two pick next year. One texter says, I think it's sad and miserable that I'm only excited to see training camp and that I'm the only one excited to see training camp and some football. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big training camp guy. You know that. You know, I love going out to training camp, and then I love coming back and saying, all right, here's what happened today at training camp. I don't know if I feel that way this year. This team's that bad that I just don't know if I feel that way. I just don't know if I'm excited at all for it. Chris says, can't blame Levis this year, boys. Well, Levis did suck last year, but I guess you can't blame Levis, which, again, this is how it works. They'll blame the coach. It's always musical blame in the NFL. Remember when they had John Robinson and J-Rob We Trust, and Mariota was the quarterback, and Mike Mularkey was the coach, and everybody blamed Mike Mularkey for the Titans not winning more games. That John Robinson was giving Mularkey this incredible team, and Mariota was this incredible quarterback, and Terry Rubisky and Mike Mularkey were holding them back. Now that we know how the story ends, don't you kind of feel like Mike Mularkey squeezed every ounce of juice out of that orange? But it's musical blame. One year you blame the coach. The next year you blame the GM. The next year you blame the quarterback. The next year. So Cam's not going to get blamed this year. It'll be Callahan. Borgonzi and Brinker aren't going to get blamed this year. It'll be Callahan. This year, it's all on Callahan. Not that I think that it should or shouldn't be. I don't think Callahan's any good, but we'll see. One texter says, hey, Jared, did you hear there is a petition with like 800 signatures to get you off the radio? Connor, is this such a thing?
Not to my knowledge.
Hold on, I'm going to do a Google search right here. Jared Stillman radio petition. 800 signatures. That is something. Don't think I see anything there. I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. But don't think I see anything there. For whatever that's worth. That's too bad. Well, let's make it 900. Why not? 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 here on the program. So there is one thing that really, really bothers me as far as the Titans are concerned with the Will Levis news today. And it does not bother me at all that Will Levis is not going to be available for this upcoming season. Will Levis sucks. Will Levis was never going to be the starting quarterback of the Titans. And quite frankly, I don't think Will Levis was going to be the backup quarterback of the Titans. But there is one thing in particular that does really, really bother me. And we'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. I am still looking for the Jared Stillman petition with 800 signatures, apparently, to get me off the radio. I'd like to know where this is. But I guess it doesn't exist. I Googled it, couldn't find it. Somebody, by the way, has invaded my text line and is replying without. See, I believe at the radio station, since we all have access to the text line, we should all sign our name when we send a text back. If I send a text on the text line, I reply with -JS. Now, I know this is Adam Vingan, but he will not sign his name, I guess, because he's a coward and doesn't want it out there. But apparently Adam Vingan is also trying to find where the Jared Stillman petition to get me off the radio is. And if I incorrectly accused Adam, then I apologize, but I don't think I did. So today the big news is, the big story is, Will Levis quit on the Titans. Will Levis opted to have shoulder surgery after injuring his shoulder last year against Miami. He has opted to have the shoulder surgery, even though he said the next week, oh, no, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm ready to play. Put me out there, coach. And now, 9 months later, he's ready to say, oh, no, I need the surgery. Will Levis not being available for this upcoming season does not bother me. Will Levis, in my opinion, wasn't going to play anyways. Again, this idea of a quarterback controversy versus him and Cam Ward just got paid $40 million. There was not a controversy between the two. There was not a competition. I think the competition for Levis was going to be with Brandon Allen, and I think that was a competition he was going to lose. I think the reason Levis decided to get the surgery is to save face so he doesn't have to go compete against Brandon Allen and subsequently lose to Brandon Allen. So it doesn't bother me that Will Levis isn't going to be out there this upcoming season for the Titans. It doesn't bother me that there's one less person in the quarterback room getting reps during camp and the preseason. And let me say this, even though I don't think Levis would have mattered to the team, him playing in the preseason games would have made the boring preseason games more interesting. It would have helped pass the time as we get juiced up for football season to watch Levis play quarterback than it will be to watch Tim Boyle. But that doesn't really bother me either. It doesn't really bother me that Levis lied to the coaches last year before the Indy game and got up to the podium and blamed his injury on his crappy performance, and now 8-9 months later says he's still hurt. But I do think that reveals his character. What bothers me is the character of Will Levis. And apparently how the organization for a year just lapped everything that loser set up. Remember when Amy fired Mike Vrabel and she did that sit down with Mike Keith and she told the fans a reason to be excited is we have a young quarterback. And people around the NFL heard that and were like, wait a minute, what? Like Levis is okay, but I wouldn't be telling the fans, hey, we got a young quarterback. No, you say that when Jaden Daniels is your quarterback, not Will Levis. But Amy couldn't help herself. She just lapped it up. Ran Carthon laps it up with Will Levis so much, he was defending Will Levis even after he got fired. Well, you know, Will's had 5 offensive coordinators in 5 years and can't blame Will and can't this, that, and the other. Brian Callahan did a podcast interview in which he said Will Levis was a big part of the reason why he took the Titans job. This town was ablaze with Will Levis propaganda and the idea that this loser, who again doesn't want to compete for the backup quarterback job, was going to be the next Brett Favre. And it took how many games to realize that he was a total phony who would cower the instant the game ramped up. And yet, for a year, everybody around here just ate it up. I talked to a former general manager last year. I was like, do you realize these Titan fans think Will Levis is going to be the next Dan Marino? And the former GM said, yeah, apparently everybody in that town seems to think a lot more of him than everybody else in the league. I'll never forget doing the draft simulations before the 2024 draft, when I said, okay, if Drake May falls, and there were some rumors that Drake May might fall, if Drake May falls to 7, what do you do? And Tim Hasselbeck is saying, take him. If Drake May falls, you take him. And everybody is saying, why would you do that, Jared? You have Will Levis. I knew Levis was a phony the second he got up there before the Jets game. And he mentioned DeMario as part of their defense when there was nobody named DeMario on their team. At that exact moment, before week 2, I thought to myself, oh, holy hell. Why? Because if Will Levis had really been putting in the work to get ready for the Jets, he would have known who's on their team. And yet last year, the Titans just defended that loser tooth and nail. Even over the DeMario thing. Somebody from the Titans reached out to me and was like, he just made a mistake. It's like you say, you think you've never made a mistake on the radio before, Jared? When you're a quarterback in the NFL and you're playing a team, the only thing that matters to you at that point in time, this is Wednesday. The Bears game was Sunday. The Jets game is the following Sunday. By that Wednesday, you need to know absolutely everything about that Jets team. Everything. Kirk Cousins has binders that are stacked up, notebooks on each team from each year, so that when he goes back to get ready for another team, he can say, okay, this is when I played them last year. Here were my notes at the time. This is what we saw last year. This is what they did to us here. This is what they did to us there. Ben Johnson called a play against the Chicago Bears last year in which he saw run against the Bears 2 years prior to that and decided, hey, it worked for that team. Let's try it for this team. That is the level of preparation and knowledge you've got to have in the NFL. And Will Levis gets up there before the Jets game after he became a national embarrassment for that way he lost the Chicago game, and he starts talking about DeMario. And nobody else, except for me, seemed to have a massive problem with that. I was sitting there listening to the press conference because it was while we were on the air. And we're running the press conference live. And I'm looking at Ian, and I hear Levis talk about, oh, yeah, that defense, they're so good. DeMario's doing a great job for them. And I'm like, DeMario? Who is DeMario? Is there a DeMario on the Jets? I asked Ian, I said, is there a DeMario on the Jets? And he was like, I don't know. And I went and looked it up. They didn't have a DeMario on their team. Levis wasn't putting the work in. But Jared, he gets there at 3 a.m. and I don't care. If you don't know who's on their team, after you've already had a practice getting ready for them, you're not doing the work. But again, the Titans defended that loser tooth and nail. And Levis isn't the only loser on the Titans who this organization just absolutely bows down to and kisses the feet of. There's Jeffrey Simmons. He doesn't have to get any sacks or win any games for the Titans. But according to everybody over there, he's a superstar and he's our team leader. Brian Callahan said today, nobody wants to win more than Jeffrey Simmons. Why? Based off of what? How do you know nobody wants to win more than Jeffrey Simmons? Jeffrey Simmons wasn't going to OTAs. You mean to tell me he wants to win more than Tony Pollard? Nobody wants to win more than Jeffrey Simmons. He's our team leader. He's great. Why? Because he drives a nice car? What does Simmons do that makes him so great? But again, over there, it's like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, King Jeff is approaching. All hail King Jeff and his 5 sacks this season. And then there's L'Jarius Sneed. While his teammates are trying to win a divisional game, he's out there allegedly shooting up car dealerships in Texas. Oh, and by the way, I heard TD on the midday show today. He's still hurt. But don't ask Brian Callahan or Denard Wilson about that, because they'll tell you how great L'Jarius Sneed's doing. Loser, loser, loser. That's my problem with this organization. They fall in love with losers. They fall in love with selfish football players who are there for a check, who don't want to compete, who don't want to be held accountable, and who certainly will not hold themselves accountable. There was DeAndre Hopkins last year throwing a pity party on the sideline of the Buffalo game because he wasn't getting the ball and because the team stunk. So what did the Titans do? Brian Callahan went to the media, lied about DeAndre Hopkins being hurt, and then they traded him to Kansas City for a bag of footballs because with the Titans, you don't have to be a good team player to get your way. In fact, good team players don't get rewarded in Tennessee. Every general manager and every coach says that they want to have selfless guys who put the team first. But all the Titans have shown us recently is that really doesn't matter. Ryan Tannehill was a good team player, and the Titans rewarded him by putting Andre Dillard at left tackle, blowing his ankle up, and then saying, we're going to put the other guy in instead of you. Never threw the organization under the bus. What did the Titans do for Ryan Tannehill? Derrick Henry, great team player. Never blame that horrible offensive line for the fact that he was getting hit 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Never blame that horrible Todd Downing. Never blame the fact that they traded away the only good wide receiver they had to take any pressure off of him. And they said, we don't want Derrick anymore. And then he just went to Baltimore and almost ran for 2,000 yards. They never rewarded Derrick Henry. They never paid Derrick Henry at the top of the market as a running back. Baltimore could have paid Derrick $8 million this year. They gave him a raise and a contract for next year because they value Derrick Henry and the team player he is. Kevin Byard, one of the best team players in Tennessee Titans history, one of the best representatives for the Tennessee Titans, the guy who always got up there when things weren't going well, the guy who always said the right things, the guy who always supported his teammates, the guy who, even when he was in a contract dispute for the Titans, you could feel how much it hurt him for that to be public information. They traded him for a bag of footballs while his newborn was fighting for his life in the NICU. The Titans culture is the exact opposite of how you'd want any winning team to operate. Everybody over there only cares about themselves. Nobody puts the team first. Jeffrey Simmons doesn't get any sacks. Instead of saying, we all have to be better, starting with me, he says, I did my job, blame them. L'Jarius Sneed says, I'm the healthiest I've been. He'll be on the PUP list. And Will Levis lied to the coaching staff last year and said that his shoulder was okay before the Indy game, and then went through the rest of last year and the entire offseason program before deciding on the eve of training camp, my shoulder still hurts, I'm going to get the surgery because I don't want to have to fight for the backup job. And for some reason, this organization loves propping those guys up. This organization loves highlighting the losers. And now you wonder why you're the worst and most irrelevant team in the NFL. That's why. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. That's what bothers me about the Titans. And the Will Levis story, not the fact that Will Levis isn't going to be out there this year. I couldn't give a rat's ass about that. He sucks. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. So the Titans, speaking of their PR and everything else, the Titans did put out, and I'm sure Titan fans that are just fired up for camp, oh yeah, their little docu-series, the Titans of Tennessee, their YouTube series. They put out an edition today. I watched it, so you don't have to. But we got to talk about this. I mean, we got to talk about this behind-the-scenes hype show they put out there that was so cringy. I'm just going to tell you, if Floyd saw it, he'd be embarrassed. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The quarterback room it's a sacred place.
They're all getting opportunities, and I think the takeaway is that they've all made the most of those chances they've had, and it's been a good process this spring.
The dynamic in the quarterback room has been great because they're all so different in their backgrounds.
Gen Alpha.
We have two young players in our room with Cam, who's a rookie, with Will, who's going into his third year. And then you got two veteran players.
Give him a chance. That guy's going to make that play.
You know, Brandon Allen's been in the league for 10 years, and Tim Boyle's been around for a while too. So they got great perspective.
Good placement, but
It's different than any other position because it's the only position where we only want to be placed. Whereas every other position has at least 2 or 3 guys that play, sometimes more. All of those guys are high-level competitors. They all want to be the guy that has the ball in their hand.
And that competition kind of brings out the best in them. You know, they're competing. We grade every throw that we make in practice.
A, B, C.
Yes, that's right. It was a B and a C.
We see from the back.
C ball.
Give me a great boys on this one. Let's not get past this. A ball?
An A.
That's an A ball.
It's B ball.
When you grade literally every throw,
A ball?
A ball.
Let's go. A, B, B ball.
they all want to win, and they want to win each throw.
B. B. B ball. You got
C ball? You can't say, everybody can't say B.
I gotta be honest, that guy made a great catch.
And this was a good throw.
On the flip side, though, what's unique about the quarterback room is they're all in there trying to help each other. Yeah, I want to perform really well when it's my time, but when it's not, let me see if I can help you do a better job with what you're doing.
Tell him where to go.
Brian Callahan, you know what's great about this quarterback room is they're selfless but competitive. An hour before that piece dropped, the Titans of Tennessee, the new miniseries they have, which feels totally coach-inspired. It feels like Brian Callahan's trying to put together a pep rally video for the fans. I don't understand it. I think it's ridiculous. I've noticed that Brinker and Borgonzi haven't been in the first two, you know, like where they've done a sit-down interview, which makes me think it's not their idea, makes me think it's Callahan's. An hour before that came out, the Will Levis news that Will Levis didn't want to compete for the backup job because he is both selfish and not competitive had come out. Very ironic. So I watched this 25-minute behind-the-scenes hype video, which I do want to thank the Titans for keeping it at 25 minutes. The Vrabel one was like an hour and a half. The Patriots released, so thank you, Titans, for 25 minutes. But it was so cringy that I had to text Floyd's daughter-in-law and Ian to say, and you guys know how I feel about assuming how Floyd would have felt about things, because I have no idea how Floyd would have felt most of the time. But I watched this and I thought, if Floyd saw this, he'd be so embarrassed. And I know Floyd comes from a different era, but the thing starts with them asking all the coaches, how would you describe the Titans offense? And Brian Callahan was like, well, we want to be an explosive offense. And we want to be, and all I could hear when I heard him say that was, ha, 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 ha. Everybody wants to be an explosive offense. Ha, 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 ha. Do you have the players to be an explosive offense? And the answer, of course, is no. But then I watched it. And it just, I don't want to say it got my blood boiling, because at this point, I know that this is what Callahan is. He's corny. He's a loser coach. Like, it's now proofs in the pudding. But he starts off the video by tripling down on the offseason competition program that is going to be so dynamic for the football team that Jeffrey Simmons didn't even show up to. This was Callahan 3 minutes into this Titans behind-the-scenes video.
One of the things I felt like lacked from our season last year was we just needed more out of the time we were together here in the offseason and in training camp. How do we better connect our team? I showed a clip to our team, Steve Kerr talking about what wins in his experiences is you obviously have to have good players, but the joy and competition are the two things that he's always talked about.
Nice ball. Almost there, Hook. Right on it. You're right, 100. Out the gate. There we go. That's it. Good job.
So a route that I've never done before. I've not seen done a lot of different places, so I think it's a bit unique to us, which is exciting. As we divided our team into 8 different teams, so each team has a captain and an alternate.
Well, Morgan, you guys are hanging on to a lead.
There's about 11 to 12 players and usually 2 to 3 coaches on every single team.
I got you. I like that. I got 2 points. I feel like you do that. Time out.
We'll have an off-season winner team total, and then we'll have a training camp winner with a team total. And so we compete at everything.
Okay, so he's doubling down on it. So Callahan came out with this at the beginning of the offseason program. We laughed. We made fun of it. We called it Disney, stealing from Coach Boone and Remember the Titans. We laughed about it, the 4 H's. I mean, I think I told this on the radio. If I didn't, I think I can say this. When this came out, of this stupid offseason competition that the Titans are putting out there, because Callahan, he clearly thinks it's going to make a difference during the football season, even though Jeffrey Simmons chose not to participate in any of this. But when Callahan put this out there, the Yankees AAA team, Scranton, was in town. They were playing the Sounds. My roommate from college is the first base coach for the Scranton AAA Yankee team. And so we did the show from First Horizon Park, like we're going to do it this week, like we do it all the time when the Sounds are in town. And after the show was over, I went downstairs into the Yankee clubhouse. And I was just chatting with the coaches. I'm in this guy's wedding in October. The pitching coach or one of the other coaches, he's in the wedding too. So we're just kind of all shooting the breeze in the coach's locker room at First Horizon Park. And they said to me, so what'd you talk about on the radio today? And I said, you guys aren't going to believe this, but Brian Callahan has come up with this Fakakta off-season competition program that he actually thinks is going to make a difference for winning and losing with grown men, with this made-up. Tony Pollard doesn't even know what the prize is if they win. And these Yankee coaches all sat there and laughed. Like, what? Like, I mean, come on. These guys are coaching AAA players. You want to know what gets these guys excited? They don't go to them and say, hey, we're going to give you 3 bonus points. No, they say, hey, if you do what we tell you, you might get to the big leagues. That's what matters. Your batting average matters. Your home runs matter. That's what matters. And so they even laughed about it. So we laughed for 2 months about this thing. Jeffrey Simmons took his pants off, stuck his ass in the face of this, saying, I don't think I need it. I'm not even going to show up. And Callahan's putting out a video where right away he tells you how important this is. He's not backing off this. Total stoogery. Then they decide, I couldn't believe this. I could not believe this part. This part. They spent a segment of the show talking about the importance of smack talking each other during practice. Play the cut.
Hey, Gail. Hey, you remember what I told you yesterday? Remember when I told you yesterday doing this stretch? I said I was going to get 5 sacks. I told you what's going to happen.
Jeff, I heard he's a big smack talker guy, so there's going to be some words exchanged.
There's nobody that wants to win on our football team more than Jeff does.
The chirping back and forth. Those are the things that you love in football, right?
Hey, you look good in 7-on-7.
But you can tell he's doing it from a sense of, hey, I wanted to see if this young buck is what he's really made of.
As much as Jeff likes to talk during practice, I think we found out that we have another guy that likes to talk probably just as much.
We're going to talk smack each day, all day.
Jeff,
Oh, I love it.
what's it? Day?
It's competition.
What's the point of playing something that you love you can't have fun with?
Bantering competitively and having fun and enjoying playing football, which is the best part of it.
Some of the stuff I can't say what we be saying out there on the field. And we talking smack to each other. Callie giving a call.
A little bit of a long call. Cam, stay with me.
When I'm calling a play, he's doing all he's doing. He's listening to everything I'm telling him. And he enters right into the huddle when he calls a play and doesn't script a play call. And so I asked him after practice, and I said, just help me out here. Do you need me to wait till you finish? And he goes, no. He goes, I'm listening.
But he hearing the call while he talking smack to me and gave the call and threw a bomb to Red. So
with that sort of competitiveness, it ramps up the energy of the entire practice. And I think all the other guys respond in turn.
Oh, my God. I'm sitting here thinking about, man, they are putting a hype video where they're like, a big part of what we're trying to do here is smack talk. That's really going to be important for us. It's going to be important for us to talk smack. Could you imagine Mike Vrabel if you went to him and said, Coach, I think the team needs more smack talk? How he would have reacted to that. Nick Saban. And that's when it hit me watching this today. Again, the 25 minutes of the behind-the-scenes stuff with Callahan and his coaches. And it hit me. You know, when we think of certain coaches, we call them no-nonsense guys. Nick Saban is a no-nonsense guy, right? Alabama once had a behind-the-scenes show featuring Nick Saban. In fact, Floyd and I were very much featured in that with an interview we did with Saban that ESPN picked up. But in this documentary, I think it was called Training Day Rolling with the Tide, it had Nick Saban talking about practice. And Nick Saban explained to the coaches that in the coaches meeting, coaches can meet for an unlimited amount of time. So if you've got any questions about the drill, I need you to ask me right now, because in the meetings with the players, I need you to explain to the players what to do. So if the players get out on the practice field and they know what to do, we don't have to waste any time coaching them up on the drill. We can just get right into the drill, and we can maximize the amount of time that we have with the players on the football field. And Saban was riding these coaches, basically saying, I need to know right now, or I'm going to get in your ass if I have to waste practice time to explain a drill to a player. A no-nonsense coach. Brian Callahan is an all-nonsense coach. That's all he is. That's all it is when it comes to Callahan, is he is all nonsense. Oh, this competition. Oh, the smack talk. It's just all nonsense. And that's all he cares about. Last year, they didn't have a right tackle. It's like, excuse me, you don't have a right tackle and your quarterback sucks. And in the 1-2-minute drill rep you got against Seattle when they were in town for joint practices, your quarterback threw an interception and you didn't seem to care about it. Yeah, that doesn't matter. He doesn't take the serious stuff seriously, and he cares about the nonsense. Whenever you think about a coach and you think about a no-nonsense coach, Vrabel, Saban, Belichick before he went crazy, when you think of that coach, Callahan is the opposite. He is the all-nonsense coach. Yeah, sit here and waste time talking about, I think that the smack talk is good for our team. Really? You're trying to relay the play into Cam Ward, and Cam Ward is busy talking smack. But it's okay because Cam Ward said, no, coach, I'm listening to you while I'm talking smack. Do you really buy that? So when you have to burn a timeout at Denver because Cam Ward's not listening to you call the play, or you call the play, he didn't listen, so he tells them something totally different, now what are you going to do? Again, you think Mike Vrabel would have ever been okay with a player talking smack on the practice field while he himself is talking directly to the player? Of course not. But Vrabel's a no-nonsense guy. Saban's a no-nonsense guy. Callahan is an all-nonsense guy. So you can watch it if you want, but this behind-the-scenes thing just, again, proved to me how unserious Brian Callahan is. The only coach on that staff, now they only did the offensive coaches, the only coach on that staff that I watched this video and I'm like, I think this guy's an actual football coach, was Bo Hardegree. The only one, the quarterback's coach. He was the only one that I watched that, and I'm like, this guy is serious. He's talking about footwork. He's talking about development and drills. He's holding guys accountable. Like, hey, that was a B pass instead of an A pass. Bo Hardegree's the only guy I watched, and I thought that guy's actually coaching football. Everybody else, I feel like, is a peewee coach getting the orange slices and the Capri Suns ready. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025. Our big, long commercial-free segment is next. Stillman and Company, 1025 again.
We sat down and talked about the 4 H's, which is really important here, talking about a player's history, his heroes, his heartbreaks, his hopes.
It allows guys to have a little bit of vulnerability.
And when you're here, I think that builds that relationship and that camaraderie that everybody talks about. And that's definitely what you need, because the chemistry off the field is definitely something that helps build it when you're on the field.
And, when the game's over for these guys, they're not going to remember, who they blocked or what touchdown they had in any particular game. They're going to remember the camaraderie they had, the relationships that they had, the bonds that they built with other people. That's what they're going to remember.
Even Bill Callahan's on this? Oh, God. Again, like I said, we should keep a counter at training camp this year when Callahan says things like, remember last year when Calvin Ridley and Will Levis couldn't connect, and Callahan said, oh, that doesn't matter. And, it was hot out there. And again, this goes back to the fact that what I've decided now is that Brian Callahan is an all-nonsense coach. That, again, some coaches are no nonsense. Like, hey, what are you doing right now? Well, I was picking my ass because how's that going to help us beat the Broncos? It's not. Get back to work. And those are the no-nonsense coaches. I mean, I remember when Vrabel took over and he made fun of the fact that the year before Mike Mularkey had a movie night where the Titans went out, took the team to a movie during training camp. And I thought that was a little unwarranted as far as the criticism of movie night, but Vrabel was a no-nonsense coach. So, like, any wasted time we're not doing, I'm not, whatever. This guy is an all-nonsense coach. If he could cancel practice on Wednesday to have movie night, he'd do it. Because he thinks movie night is going to win them games, whereas I think being able to get the ball out on time is more important. That's just me. And again, it goes back to the culture of this team that I think is a complete and total train wreck. One texter into the text line said, and our phone line is by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says, why do I get the vibe that Brian Callahan would be the best youth counselor at a vacation Bible school camp for middle schoolers and yet is an NFL head coach? Awful. So I've said this 100 times, but I'm going to say this again. Vrabel was mean. So they went out to go hire the exact opposite of Vrabel. They went from a no-nonsense coach to an all-nonsense coach. That's why. I mean, I watch the Netflix docuseries Quarterback that just came out where it features Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and Joe Burrow. And, I mean, my wee-wee gets erect watching Joe Burrow be a quarterback because he's so genuine with his teammates. He's so brutally honest about his own performance. He's so accountable. And then I watched this loser, Zach Taylor, which is where Callahan learned this from. I watched Zach Taylor coach him. And I just think, what a waste. What a waste coaching Joe Burrow. Like, Joe Burrow understands the game. Joe Burrow, is just kissing Jamar's ass the entire show because he knows that relationship is the most important relationship. At one point during the game, they needed a big stop on defense. And Joe Burrow's looking up there and he says, Trey, where you at? And Trey Hendrickson comes out and gets a sack. Joe Burrow's the coach of that team. Like, that, he's the coach. And so you hired the guy from Cincinnati, but the guy from Cincinnati learned from the guy at Cincinnati who doesn't actually coach because Joe Burrow does all the coaching. Again, Zach Taylor, he's a nonsense guy. And that's why Joe Burrow doesn't listen to him. There was a cut after the Titans game where Joe Burrow's just telling Zach Taylor, screw off. I don't need to hear your positive sunshine pumping because we played terrible today. Because, again, Joe Burrow, he doesn't deal with the nonsense. Oh, it gets me so worked up. One texter says, when Callahan said, do you need me to wait? In reference to Cam Moore talking smack, I said, what the F? I am a boss at work, and if I am talking and someone is not listening, things are going to go in a different direction. That's for sure. I feel the same way. Callahan's like, Cam Ward and Jeff Simmons talk so much trash that I have to ask Cam, hold on, Cam, do you want me to wait? You want to keep talking trash where I get the play call in? I'm like, could you imagine Bill Walsh? And I read Bill Walsh's book. Bill Walsh one time just laid in to Mike Holmgren because Joe Montana made a pass in practice, and it was about a 1/10 of an inch too high. And Holmgren's just coaching us, hey, good throw, Joe. And Bill Walsh laid into Holmgren in front of everybody, saying that wasn't a good throw. We want the ball on the numbers. If you don't get the ball on the numbers, we got problems. But again, that's a no-nonsense coach, and this is a nonsense coach. One texter says, do you think Callahan can tell between real and sarcastic? If I had a teacher or a professor I saw through, I would sarcastically participate to mock them for entertainment. I wonder if there's any of that going on to mock Callahan, and if so, does he even know? I don't think these guys take him seriously. That's for sure. I think that they're like, yeah, we like Callahan, but I mean, it's a joke. One texter says, those cuts have been so bad, cringy doesn't even scratch the surface of me. Here's what bothers me. The amount of people that have carried water for this Callahan off-season competition performance thing that they're like, well, but you have to understand, Jared, they think this is going to be what carries them over the top. Okay, well, that's stupid. These are grown men. This made-up competition is not going to get them excited. That's not how this works. 615-737-1025 here on our program, 615-737-1025. Last week, I was off, but I was sick as a freaking dog, thanks in large part, I believe, to my son who got me sick. But I heard two cuts. Speaking of the nonsense when it comes to the Titans, two cuts over the last week in Titan interviews that are exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the culture of this team. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
I can feel that hunger as you talk about it. Can you give us an idea of what you have on your mantle board, your goal board? What would a great year for Roger McCreary and the Titans look like?
Yeah, usually when people ask me that, I'll be like, it's just get better every year. That's always been my goal, is just to get better every year. But now it's me trying to be the top. I want to be the top corner. I want to be the top person in the game, the DB that people talk about, because I feel like a lot of people look over me and just don't look at the plays I make on the field. So it's just me trying to show people that I'm out there, I'm on the field, like I matter, and I'm going to show them that. And going into this season with the Titans, I feel like we're going to show people who we really made of and what we truly are, because I feel like a lot of people don't respect us. They don't talk about the Titans a lot. And I feel like this year, especially with Cam Ward, that guy, that quarterback, I feel like we're going to do good with him.
Roger McCreary on TV. And by the way, I love how he's like, normally I get asked what my goal is. My goal usually is to just get better every day. But this year, I want people to see that I'm one of the best corners in the game. Oh, God. Oh, God. See, this is the culture the Titans have. Me, 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 me. Remember when Christian Fulton did that? Somebody call Roger McCreary and say, hey, remember Christian Fulton before he was a free agent, the summer of me, when Christian Fulton turned into an absolute pumpkin? Do you really want to be that way? And so there were two interviews, two specific cuts I heard that in each instance just drove me up a freaking wall about, again, we talk about no nonsense. Derrick Henry, no nonsense. People ask Derrick Henry a question at the podium. Derrick, what's your focus this week? Yeah, I'm just trying to get better out there. Like, no nonsense. And now it's all nonsense with the Titans. The first is Jeffrey Simmons on Good Morning Football talking about, again, trash talking and him and Cam Ward.
First off, I think that our team, Tennessee Titans, never get the respect and attention we need. I never seen the number one pick overall never get the respect and, quite frankly, the attention that he deserved. I went to minicamp and, first off, I met Cam for the first time. It was at a private birthday party that Saturday before the minicamp, the week before minicamp. And we met, and of course, we were talking a little smack then. I was like, I heard you've been slicing my guys up. You've been talking smack. I said, I'm going to bring that to you too, man. Like, I talk smack. But we started there, and then just to be able to get that relationship with him off the field, we chopped it up for a long time. We talked about fishing and things that he liked to do off the field. I think that's what mattered the most for me, is especially with young guys, trying to gain that relationship with guys off the field to make them feel comfortable. We know that Cam Ward is going to have to play football for us this season, and it's my goal and my job to, help him out. Going to year 7, I think I've been the longest tenure Titans, with Tennessee, just to try to make him feel at home from a vet. It's crazy to say that now that, year 7, a vet.
Okay. Everything about that answer I absolutely hated. But the very, very end, hey, that's my job, as a 7-year vet to make Cam Ward feel right at home. That's not your job. Your job is to sack the other team's quarterback and to stop the other team from scoring points. That is your job. Not making Cam Ward feel comfortable. But again, how did that answer start with Simmons? Well, I don't feel like we get enough respect. I don't feel like people talk enough about the Titans. I don't think people are talking about Cam Ward and the number 1 pick as much as he deserves. He hasn't taken a snap in the NFL yet. What are we talking about? The Tennessee Titans have had an MVP. So if you do well in Tennessee, you get talked about. Derrick Henry got talked about. So don't give me this, at Tennessee, it's unfair. It's not. Again, they're all nonsense. Everything Simmons said right there. Everything he said I hated. But again, he started off saying the Titans don't get enough respect. We don't get enough respect. You're the worst team in ball. Again, let's worry about what matters. Instead, we're worried about what doesn't matter. Again, you want to be no nonsense. They're all nonsense. But, I met Cam at a private birthday party the week before the mini camp because I didn't go to OTAs. And, I heard you've been talking smack. Well, I'm going to talk smack to you And I'll tell you, we really got along there, and that's important because that's my job to make Cam feel at home. No, it's not. Everything he said, nonsense. Now let's use McCreary. I got nothing against McCreary. McCreary has been on the Titans for 3 years, and I feel like for the most part, he's done his job. He's not an elite outside corner. He's more of a good nickel corner. He cannot match up with big, tall receivers on the outside. T. Higgins abused him a couple years ago to where it's like, yeah, against a big, tall receiver, they're just going to throw it up, and McCreary can't do anything about it with his short arms. But he's a decent player. But listen to what McCreary says. Oh, yeah, no, with Cam Ward here, here's my goal this season.
You got a little something for him if you pick him off in training camp? Talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get him on. He haven't seen much of me in the camp because the young guys out there and stuff. But yeah, most definitely, I'm gonna be out there trying to talk trash to him. Cause that's one thing I would really want to do is talk more trash, get in people's head. And I feel like he's the perfect guy to help me get at that more, I would say.
Yeah, one thing I'm really focused on this year is Cam Ward's going to help me talk more trash. That's what I'm really worried about here. This season, that's what I got to do is I got to talk more trash. It's all nonsense. Everything the Titans value is nonsense. Everything the coach values is nonsense. Everything the players value, nonsense. Like, imagine if Roger McCreary was like, yeah, my goal this year is I got to be able to play more on the outside because I feel like I physically can go up against some of these bigger, stronger receivers. And I've done well in the past, but I've also had some issues. So this year I want to be, that matters. The fact that, hey, this year I want to be more physical at the line of scrimmage. This year I want to play more on the outside against bigger, taller receivers. This year that matters. If Simmons were to sit there and say, hey, last year I got 5 sacks, and that's not good enough. This year I want to get after the quarterback more. This year instead it's all, we want to talk more trash, and we want to talk fishing, and it's nonsense. And it comes from the coach. Because the coach went 3-14 last year and somehow kept his job, and he spent all offseason thinking, what do I need to do to get this team better? And he said, you know what? We're going to embrace more bull crap, more nonsense. Oh, my goodness. Like, I know that they must not have paid Robbie Bourne enough when he was the PR director of the Titans, because I don't ever remember them being this stupid on this consistent of a basis. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So my expectations are out there when it comes to the Titans. I think, again, the official expectations, 4 wins this year. And I'm going to tell you what is going to happen if I'm right, and most of you think that they're going to be terrible this year. I am going to tell you what's going to happen. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Here on the program, Season 10 of Stillman and Company / Jared the GM, and one constant that we have done for 10 years. And I don't think Floyd has actually ever participated in this because this was always that 3-week, month-long, 4-week, 5-week period of time that he would spend out in Turks and Caicos every summer. And every Monday of the week of training camp, we would have our official expectations decided for the Tennessee Titans upcoming season. We had a very specific mathematic formula when it came to this. We break down the games that they will win, the games that they should win, the games that they should lose and that they will lose, and the toss-ups. You take the games from the winning category, put those in as wins, put the games from the losing category in as losses, split the toss-ups, and you have your expectations. And every year we've done this. And I'm not going to let Will Levis quitting on the team because he's a loser and a front runner ruin what is an annual Stillman and Company tradition. So earlier today in the program, I laid out that my expectation this upcoming season for the Titans is 4 wins. How did we get there? I don't think there's any game on the docket that I feel like they will win. You know, again, where it's like usually a game against the Sisters of the Poor with no quarterback. Unfortunately, that's you. So no games that they will win. I think there is one game they should win. They should beat the Saints at home. 6 toss-ups. Indy at home, at Arizona, at the Raiders, New England at home, Jacksonville at home, at Cleveland. I don't know how you can say that you should beat Cleveland when they have a much better roster than you and you'll be playing on the road. Should lose at the Texans, at the Colts, Chargers at home, Texans at home, Sam Darnold and the Seahawks at home, at San Francisco, at Jacksonville, and the will lose, like, oh yeah, they're going to lose these games, at Denver, the Rams at home, Kansas City at home. Again, we take the will wins and the should wins. That's 1. Saints. And we split the toss-ups. 4 wins. And last year when I predicted 5 wins and Ian predicted 4 wins, I was just a big hater. You don't understand, Jared. You'll see. This year, I'm actually convinced. And I know, the usual suspects in the YouTube chat will say, we're going to win 9 games this year, Jared. Come on now. Cam Ward is going to be Jaden Daniels. You'll see. But I don't think most Titans fans are delusional when it comes to this team this year. I think they know this team's going to be bad. Again, the Vegas over-under is 5.5, which is tied with Cleveland and New Orleans for the worst in the NFL. And I think there's a lot of you out there that hear 5.5 and think, take the under. I, by the way, would be one of them. They should beat the Saints at home. They should win a division game. They should win one of those games out west against Arizona and Vegas. They should win a game against another last place team like Cleveland or New England. But I know what's going to happen if the Titans only win 4 games this year. And this is what really depresses me. Again, the start of training camp should be fun. It should be exciting. Again, like Floyd used to say at the beginning of the year, everybody thinks they're going to the Super Bowl almost every year. I don't think Titan fans feel that way this year, but certainly inside the building, we keep hearing guys give interviews in which they say, we don't get the respect we deserve. But I know what's going to happen when they win 4 games this season. Brian Callahan will get the blame and he will be fired. And the narrative will be that Brian Callahan is holding Cam Ward back. We drafted Cam Ward and Brian Callahan and his terrible coaches. They don't know what they're doing. And we need to get a new coach to come in here to save Cam Ward. Think of the way that Ben Johnson has been tapped in Chicago to save Caleb Williams. And if that doesn't work in Chicago, they'll blame Caleb. They'll say, oh, Caleb was a bust. And if the Titans go out and get a new coach after this season and it doesn't work out, Titans fans will blame Cam. They'll say, oh, yeah, Cam was a bust. The same way that you feel Will Levis was a bust, Marcus Mariota was a bust, Vince Young was a bust, Jake Locker was a bust. The same way you felt about those quarterbacks, that's how you will feel about Cam. It is such a wildly predictable cycle. And here's what really bothers me. 2 years ago, the Titans went on the road to Jacksonville. It was around Thanksgiving of 2023. They went on the road to Jacksonville, and they got absolutely drubbed by Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. Calvin Ridley had a field day because the Titans were matching him up man for man with Amani Hooker. They had no left tackle. They had no right tackle. Will Levis was playing his fourth game as a quarterback. The only guy they had worth a crap was Derrick Henry, and he was doing the best he could. And I said at 5 o'clock on that Titans Monday that if I owned the team at the end of the year, I'd fire Rand Carthon and I'd fire Mike Vrabel and I'd start all over again. And everybody said, Jared, you're racist. You can't fire a general manager after one season. Why not? He was brought in here to work with Vrabel. They don't have a clue. Time to cut your losses and move on. The 49ers did it with Chip Kelly and Jim Tom Sula in back-to-back years. You know who they hired after that? Kyle Shanahan. So why can't I do it? No, Jared, you can't. You'll see. So, of course, the Titans did the wildly predictable thing in the wildly predictable cycle, which is they fired Mike Vrabel but kept Rand Carthon because now let's see what Rand can do, even though Rand had not earned that opportunity. Technically, he got promoted. Again, a promotion that he did not earn. They got worse. So what'd they do? And I said they need to blow it up. They need to blow it up. They need to go get an experienced guy to run the football operation. And then they need to let that guy decide what to do with Callahan and what to do at quarterback. And they didn't do any of that. They fired Rand. Again, somebody's got to take the blame, although Rand did suck and is incompetent. They fired Rand, promoted Chad Brinker, kept the coach, and drafted a quarterback. So now, after this year, they're going to fire the coach. They're going to keep the quarterback. They're going to keep the general manager and the president. They're going to hire a new coach. And then after the next year, they'll blame them and the quarterback. And they'll say, well, Matt Nagy didn't pick Cam Ward. Can't blame him. Again, it's so wildly predictable. And that's what really bothers me about the expectations of this season. That's what really bothers me about the reality of what is going to happen. I have felt this way for 3 years. After the 2022 season, when Amy fired John Robinson while they were sitting in first place, and I couldn't believe it, I said, you know what? Let's see what they do with a new general manager. I would run it back for one more year with Tannehill and Henry. Now, I wouldn't get Andre Dillard to play left tackle. I'd get a real left tackle. But I'd run it back with Tannehill and Henry, see what you got, and then go from there. But once it was apparent that you couldn't run it back with Tannehill and Henry anymore, it was time to blow it up. And they won't do it. And all that's happened since their inability to look in the mirror and be honest with themselves has been this wildly predictable cycle of dysfunction. This year, we love Rand. We hate Vrabel. We love Brinker. We hate Rand. Next year, it'll be, we love Matt Nagy. We hate Callahan. We love, you see what I'm saying? That's what depresses me about the Titans, is unless there's a rabbit up Cam Ward's ass, and maybe there is. Again, that's the only hope. We'll be sitting here this time next year. Everybody will be excited because the new coach the Titans will hire will be the guy to save Cam Ward, but it'll be the same utterly predictable dysfunction. 615-737-1025. We are to your phones next. 615-737-1025. Plus, Ian, the champion of expecting the Titans' terribleness last year, makes his official expectation for this season. So what he had to say, again, you can call me a hater, but I don't know if you can call Ian one. We'll get to that coming up next. Plus, again, the news of the day, Will Levis has quit on the football team. I think the football team quit on him before he quit on them. But it tells me all I need to know about Will Levis and his lack of football character. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 The Game.
One of the things I felt like lacked from our season last year was we just needed more out of the time we were together here in the offseason and in training camp. How do we better connect our team? I showed a clip to our team, Steve Kerr talking about what wins in his experiences is you obviously have to have good players, but the joy and competition are the two things that he's always talked about.
Nice ball. Almost there, Hook. Right on it. You're right on it.
Out the gate.
There we go.
That's it. Good job.
So a route that I've never done before. I've not seen done a lot of different places, so I think it's a bit unique to us, which is exciting. As we divided our team into 8 different teams, so each team has a captain and an alternate.
Well, Morgan, you guys are hanging out into a lead. Hanging out into a lead.
There's about 11 to 12 players and usually 2 to 3 coaches on every single team.
I got you. I like that. I got 2 points. I feel like you do that. Time out.
We'll have an off-season winner, team total, and then we'll have a training camp winner with a team total, and so we compete at everything.
That was Brian Callahan. His expectation is that is going to make them a much better team. Last year, we were not close enough as a team during the offseason, so this year, we're going to change it up. Did Jeffrey Simmons go to that? No, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so with that being said, Ian has every year that we've done this, that we have laid out the prediction, again, the will win, should win, toss up, will lose, should lose. Ian's always done it. And last year, I was the biggest hater in the world because I had an expectation of 5 wins for the Titans. Ian had 4 wins. And as the season continued, and the Titans were clearly not going to meet anybody else's expectations, I kept saying, hey, Ian was the guy who got it right. So I got 4 wins this year, and I have not had a lot of pushback. As far as the mathematic formula is concerned, I have not had a lot of pushback from Titan fans saying, oh, you'll see, Jared. Again, just kind of the usual suspects in the YouTube chat that are upset about it. But here's what Ian had to say, and this is how Ian lays out the season and what his expectations are.
Okay. Going over the Titans' expectation schedule for the upcoming season. We will start with the losses. We'll lose Denver, Houston, Kansas City. Should lose Rams at Arizona, Vegas, Chargers, Houston, 49ers. Toss up both the Colts, both Jacksonville, Patriots, Seattle. Should win at Cleveland versus New Orleans.
Okay.
There you go.
So that's 6 games he thinks are toss-ups and 2 should win. Split the baby in half. That's 3 toss-ups that are wins plus the 2 should wins. That's 5. He thinks 5's an improvement. And 5 might just be enough for Brian Callahan to be able to keep his job. We shall see. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Mitch is up next here on the program. Mitch, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. You go ahead. Mitch. Okay, it said wanted to get in on the Titans and their upcoming season. Well, of course, who knows? David says they will not beat the Saints. The Saints will surprise many this upcoming season. I just don't see how. Like, the Saints have a bunch of old players who aren't even really that good anymore. Like, Saquon Barkley is an older veteran player, but he is that good still in this game. Like, Alvin Kamara's not that good. And he's, when I think of their offense, the first guy who pops in my head. Chris Olave, constantly injured with concussions. They don't have a quarterback. It's going to be Tyler Shuck. And look, I watched Tyler Shuck play every game in college last year, and I liked Tyler Shuck as a college quarterback. I think Tyler Shuck is a career backup in the NFL. I would not have drafted him in the second round. And then all the defensive guys are all old. So I don't see it with the Saints. That's just me. I think they're going to be terrible. I think that's the one game with the Titans I look at that I circle and I say they should win at home. The other games, I can't look at Cleveland. Ian has Cleveland on the road as a toss-up. And I don't know how we get there. One says, how do I justify the money for NFL Sunday ticket with this dumpster fire of a team? I might as well just light the money on fire. That comes from Jeff in Nebraska. So I can't tell you how to justify your purchase for Sunday Ticket or not. I'm purchasing Sunday Ticket. Granted, I live in Nashville, so it's to watch all the other games. I like the option to watch the other games. I enjoy it. Do I probably get the value of the money out of Sunday Ticket? Probably not. But again, I like it all the same. Here's what I would say. Ryan Porth has told me, because he lives in Chicago now, he's like, yeah, I'm not getting Sunday Ticket this year. This team's going to be so bad. He told me that during the draft. He's like, I'm probably not getting Sunday Ticket this year because the Titans are going to be so bad. They are going to be so bad. And if they are not so bad, then I'll eat the words and I will be stunned that Callahan's Remember the Titans coach Boone Gettysburg address actually turned this team into a competitor. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think this team is going to be awful. I think we all know this team's going to be awful. So, I mean, we just kind of have to suck it up and then wait for Amy to fire the coach and then pray that Brinker and Borgonzi know what they're doing, which I'm not convinced of. Michael is up next here on the program. Michael, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
Thank you. I want to see your opinion on, to me, win-loss isn't that big a deal this year. They're not winning 10. They're not winning 15. So do you see a scenario, and if so, what does it look like, where the Titans win 2 games? But you're like, man, I'm hopeful because Cam Ward did this or because, X person did that. So is there a scenario where they win 1 game, but you're like, you know what? I like what happened. I like where they're going. I like this versus the year before. Thank you.
I mean, big picture, probably not. I mean, again, if they win 6 games this upcoming season, that will double their win total. That will be more than my expectation of 4 wins. That will be more than Ian's expectation of 5 wins. So that would be, you would think, given the quote-unquote expectations, a good season. Now, do you remember 2 years ago, the 2023 season, Vrabel's last year as the coach? And do you remember how awful that season was? That team won 6 games. You're talking about winning 1 or 2 games and ending up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So you're sitting through all those rear-end spankings. There's no way a team is going to lose 14 one-score games in a season. It's just not humanly possible. So you sit through all these spankings for another year, and you're going to walk out of that and say, boy, I'll tell you, I felt good about this team. No. This is what's going to happen if they win 1, 2, 3, 4 games. Cam will do some things that make you think he's got real talent, just like Mariota did, just like Drake May did this past year in New England. They'll fire the coach, and they'll go hire a coach to save Cam Ward. Think of the 3 teams that drafted quarterbacks last year. Caleb in Chicago, fired that coach. Ben Johnson's been hired. The QB guru from Detroit, he has been hired to save Caleb Williams. Washington won a bunch of games. Everybody's happy there. Dan Quinn, they're happy. Jaden Daniels, they're happy. They don't need anybody to save them. They love them all. New England fired Gerard Mayo after 1 year. Apparently, they can fire their African-American head coach, and they're not racist, even though I was racist because I wanted to fire Rand Carthon after 1 year. But they fired Gerard Mayo. They hire Mike Vrabel, and he's going to try to save the program and save Drake May. That's what's going to happen. They're going to win 1 or 2 games. It's going to be awful. They're going to fire Callahan, and the next coach will be the guy to save Cam Ward. Because it's predictable when it comes to the NFL. It just got me thinking. Because I can't get over the fact that when I said a couple of years ago, they need to blow up the whole thing, and then everybody called me racist, because Rand was a first-year GM or whatever, that I don't think anybody called the Patriots racist for firing Gerard Mayo. It just hit me. Wes and Hermitage says, I think the Titans will win 3 games this year, but Callahan still comes back. Impossible. If they win 3 games this year, there's no way Brian Callahan's coming back. There is no way. I wonder if after the offseason, where I'll just say it like this, I felt like the Titans made it very obvious to people that Brian Callahan had to change. I think the Titans were telling people, hey, Callahan's got to change, and he knows it. What was the line Burke Nihill used in the TD story? We're going to hold them accountable. I think the Titans believed that Brian Callahan had to get better as a head coach. And so Callahan vowed, hey, I promise I'll go out there and I'll go get better to go be a head coach and let me do this. And so he's like, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm massaging what can I do to make us better as a team? Should I fire my inexperienced defensive coordinator with the defense being no good last year, farm out that side of the ball to an experienced defensive coordinator so I can really just focus and worry about the offense? No, that doesn't matter. Should I fire my inexperienced offensive coordinator who last year, for whatever reason, wasn't helping me at all because our offense was absolute garbage? No, don't do that. Oh, let's switch around lockers in the locker room. That'll do it. And I wonder if the Titans have sat there and said, that's it. Like, it's March, so we can't fire you now, but that's your big change? Because that's how I felt. I'm like, that's your big change? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So the national media took this, well, Will Levis is out for the season, so now we know Cam Ward is the starter for the Tennessee Titans. I got some thoughts on that. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
if I'm wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong. If Will Levis' camp call up here and say, no, you're dead wrong, then that I would have to accept that. But this doesn't look to me like an injury that should have sidelined him for the whole season.
It's convenient.
Exactly.
It's convenient.
Absolutely.
Because he can use it to his advantage.
Absolutely.
You may be going down this road, Derek, but I do want to ask this question. Does any part of you believe that Levis quit on the Titans by electing to have surgery now?
I don't think he necessarily, I don't want to say that, because when you saw, even though he didn't play well, he competed. That's one thing Will Levis did. He competed. He didn't play well, but he never stopped competing while he was out there. It just didn't go his way. So I'm not going to say he made a business decision. That's just what he made.
Derek won't say it. I will. He quit. Also, I mean, Derek's like sitting there saying, I don't think that injury was that big of a deal, but it's a convenient injury because he wasn't going to play. So do you think he quit on the team? Well, I don't want to go that far. I mean, Connor, doesn't it kind of feel like Derek he quit? And then when Adam asked him directly, would you say he quit? He wouldn't go that far?
He kind of circled back in a way.
It's like, well, I don't want to say that, but... So when the news came out this morning that Will Levis was opting for shoulder surgery because he injured his shoulder last October, he then told the Titans that he was healthy. He then didn't play well in the game against Indy and said his shoulder wasn't healthy. The coaching staff said he told us he was healthy. He then missed a couple of games because of the shoulder. He then came back, said he was healthy. He wasn't any good. And then he spent the whole offseason out there training in California, and then he was there at OTAs, and he was there at minicamp, and now on the eve of training camp, Will Levis has opted to have the surgery. As TD has reported, it was his choice, not the Titans, and Will Levis is quitting on this upcoming season. And I knew it when I saw it that Levis was quitting. I knew it when I saw it that Levis was a front runner. It's like Derek said, if he was going to be the starter, he wouldn't be having the surgery, but it's convenient because he wasn't going to be the starter to have the surgery. And the national media was a quarterback battle, but Levis. And so this morning came out, everybody except for Albert Breer, who I think is the most reputable national reporter, all the insiders, the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters, were all coming out and saying, okay, well, Cam Ward now is the starter. You know, kind of how Maury Povich used to announce that you are the father. And I have a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, Will Levis was never going to be the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans in 2025. Will Levis had a QBR last season of 27.8. That is abysmal. Mason Rudolph replaced Will Levis for the last 3 games of the season, and Mason Rudolph himself was awful. You really thought there was any chance that they were going to go into this upcoming season with Will Levis voluntarily playing the position over a guy they drafted number 1 overall and had to write a $40 million check to? I know the Titans are stupid, but when's the last time that you've seen the number 1 or number 2 pick sit the bench behind a guy who was absolute ass cheeks the season before? I think you have to go all the way back to Phillip Rivers, who was technically drafted number 4. The Chargers did have the number 1 pick. They used it on Eli Manning, and then they, of course, traded it for Phillip Rivers. But I think you have to go all the way back to Phillip Rivers, sitting behind Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was awful, and the Chargers were awful in 2002 that led to the drafting of Rivers. I think you have to go all the way back to that. But that situation is so old that it can now drink. That was 21 years ago. That's how far back you have to go. They benched him. Brian Callahan was the coach, and they benched him with 3 games to play. They were not going to make him the starting quarterback this year. So that's the first thing. Again, this idea that there was a quarterback battle was ridiculous. The question is Cam ready to play or not? And if Cam is not ready to play, then what? Now, I have gone on the record and said I would not start Cam Ward for the first 2 weeks of the season. That no matter what Cam Ward does in training camp, no matter what he does in the preseason, although I say no matter, I would want to leave a little bit of room. Like if Cam proves, oh no, he is absolutely positively ready, then I think I could put him out there. But I would start Brandon Allen for the first 2 games on the road at Denver with that great defense at altitude, great pass rushers. Patrick Surtain is the reigning defensive player of the year. You have no shot of winning on the road there. Let's not feed Cam Ward to the Wolves week 1. And then Jared versus Braden Fisk week 2. I'd stick Brandon Allen out there. But I had said this time and time again. I would have always started Brandon Allen over Will Levis. Because Brandon Allen, even though he blows, won't just hand the other team the game. Those first 2 weeks are unwinnable. I don't care who the quarterback is. Cam Ward, Will Levis, Joe Burrow, Brandon Allen. They're not winning. This team is not going to Denver, and they are not beating that defense. And they are not going to beat the Rams. So let Brandon Allen go out there and get his teeth kicked in, and then put Cam Ward out there versus Indianapolis week 3. And now Cam's had a couple of weeks to see how a real pro Brandon Allen, not some loser like Levis, but a real pro in Brandon Allen approaches the job, and he sees what, hey, if I don't get that ball out quickly, I mean, I'm going to be sitting there in the backfield with my teeth in my skull. And put Cam out there week 3 against Indianapolis, a game in which he should have a chance to win, or at least a better chance than on the road at Denver. Now, some of you will say, well, but Cam gives me a better chance to win. Brandon Allen's no good. I don't care about that. You're not winning the Denver game. You're not going to win the LA game. You're not going to beat Matthew Stafford at Nissan Stadium in week 2 with a quarterback who knows 1/8 of the playbook. And we should be more worried about the next 10 years and not the first 2 games of the season. So when I keep hearing people say, well, now this makes Cam Ward the starter, I'm like, this doesn't have anything to do with whether or not Cam Ward is going to be or should be the starter, or they were never going to play Will Levis this season. I believe if Will Levis knew he was going to be the backup quarterback, so if Will Levis knew, hey, Will, just wait your turn, and then you'll go out there and you will play if Cam gets hurt, or if they told Levis, hey, you've got a legitimate shot to win the starting quarterback job here, I think Will Levis would be out there to Wednesday at practice, ready to go. I believe Will Levis is not tough enough to handle the reality that he was staring at being the 3rd quarterback on this team. The rejection that came with that. The acceptance of failure that came with that. All the things Malik Willis had to deal with, and he was sitting right there for him. All the things Ryan Tannehill had to deal with, and he sat there for him. I don't think he can do himself. So he came up with a cockamamie for cocked a reason to get to sit out. That's what I think happened. That's why I think Will Levis, again, opted the day before training camp to announce shoulder surgery, out for the year. But I don't think that affects Cam. And I don't think that affects Brandon Allen. And I saw Terry McCormick put out there, now that Levis is out for the year, the Titans are not going to be looking for another quarterback to add to the group. Why? Because here's what the Titans are going to do. The 4 quarterback reps now just goes to 3, and that just means more reps for Tim Boyle. That's the most disappointing part about this, is now we have to watch Tim Boyle more in the preseason. But that's it. They're not bringing in another quarterback. Because in their minds, all offseason, their plan was Ward at quarterback, Allen the backup. Levis was just there. One texter says, you play to win the game, and Cam gives you the best chance to win the game, so you have to play him. Again, what are we more worried about? Are we more worried about the first 2 games of the season, Or are we more worried about what's best for the next 10 years of the Tennessee Titans? And if you're more worried about the first 2 games of the season, then I'm sorry, but you are short-sighted and you are not very smart. You don't think Cam Ward can learn anything from watching for 2 weeks and not getting his brains kicked in? You don't think that could help? You know, I think my son's going to be pretty smart. He's 7 months old. I think he's going to be pretty smart. His mom, very smart. Let's just start him in 5th grade. Hey, son, go do long division right now. That's what happens. You got to bring these young quarterbacks along. One texter says, can the Titans bring in another quarterback now for training camp? How about Ryan Tannehill? Bring him in and let him sit behind sit Cam behind him all year and let him learn. So here's the thing about Tannehill. I think Tannehill's retired, but if Tannehill's not retired, he's not coming back to play for a terrible team or to be a backup quarterback. Tannehill's not coming to make no money. He's not interested in that. And at this point, I think he's earned it. You know, he's earned the right to say, I don't want to play for $6 million. I want to play for $12 million. I think he's earned the right to say, hey, if I'm going to go to a team, I want to go to a team where I can get in the game and where we can win some games. That's not here. So, that being said, and I think that means more reps for Tim Boyle. It will not surprise me if the Titans add another young quarterback here at some point. Some guy gets released. You know, I saw the Bengals added Desmond Ridder, and Titan fans on Twitter were like, "May, that means we should go get Jake Browning." And today the Bengals had press conferences like, no, Jake Browning's the backup quarterback. It's just a camp arm. It would not surprise me if the Titans went out and got another camp arm. But that's what Tim Boyle is. Tim Boyle's a camp arm anyways. So, again, Logan Woodside, whomever, somebody gets cut, go ahead, bring him in. But the idea of, hey, we're going to bring somebody in here to be the backup to Cam Ward, they have that. It's Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen was going to be the backup. That's why Will Levis quit this season, because he was going to be the third-string quarterback. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
The quarterback room it's a sacred place.
They're all getting opportunities, and I think the takeaway is that they've all made the most of those chances they've had, and it's been a good process this spring.
The dynamic in the quarterback room has been great because they're all so different in their backgrounds. Gen Alpha.
We have two young players in our room with Cam, who's a rookie, with Will, who's going into his third year. And then you got two veteran players.
Give him a chance. That guy's going to make that play.
You know, Brandon Allen's been in the league for 10 years, and Tim Boyle's been around for a while too. So they got great perspective. Good placement, but yeah, it's different than any other position because it's the only position where we only want to be placed. Whereas every other position has at least 2 or 3 guys that play, sometimes more. All of those guys are high-level competitors. They all want to be the guy that has the ball in their hand.
And that competition kind of brings out the best in them. You know, they're competing. We grade every throw that we make in practice.
A, B, C.
Yes.
So that
was a B and a C.
we see from the back.
C ball.
Give me a great boys on this one. Let's not get past this. A ball.
An 80. It's an 80.
That's an A ball.
It's B ball.
When you grade literally every throw,
A ball.
A ball.
A, B, B ball.
they all want to win, and they want to win each throw.
B. B. B ball. You got
C ball. You can't say everybody can't say B.
I gotta
be honest.
That guy made a great catch. And this was a good throw. I don't know.
On the flip side, though, what's unique about the quarterback room is they're all in there trying to help each other. Yeah, I want to perform really well when it's my time, but when it's not, let me see if I can help you do a better job with what you're doing.
Tell them where to go.
That was the Titans behind-the-scenes show they've released on YouTube, the Titans of Tennessee. You remember when we learned Denard Wilson taught us how to spell Titans a month ago? They came out with a new one in which Callahan talked about how great and competitive and selfless the QB room is. And what's crazy is an hour before the Titans released that, Will Levis decided to quit because he doesn't want to compete because he's selfish. So tomorrow training camp opens. Now Brinker and Borgonzi will have their press conference. Callahan will not speak until Wednesday when they open up practice, which I'm a little surprised by because in the past, the day before training camp, the opening of training camp press conferences have usually been held by the head coach and then the GM. And so this year they're doing it differently where the GM will go to tomorrow and then the coach will go Wednesday. Very separate, very odd, something I'm not used to. Now, that being said, I am going to be fascinated by how they talk about this Will Levis story. Because what Will Levis did was so incredibly gutless to wait until the day before training camp when he sees he's not going to get traded to another team, and instead of competing for the backup job or showcasing himself for other teams, he decides to have the surgery so he can make an excuse and can sit out this upcoming season. Totally gutless. And yet, the Kumbaya Titans, where everything's great all the time, and they have no shame, they tell us how important their offseason program is, only for Jeffrey Simmons to skip it. They talk about how great their QB room is when, again, one of the guys is going to quit because he doesn't want to compete. They just ignore the obvious. And I could not, even where, hey, you're trying not to rock the boat, you're just trying to get on. Usually with coaches and with players and with every now and then when they see something that they know is not right, they'll let you know it. Even if they don't come out and say it directly, and say it's gutless, they'll let you know. And maybe the Titans will say something tomorrow, but I'm just going to tell you when it comes to my experience with this Callahan regime and the way things are now, it's all about playing kumbaya and being happy while everybody gets fired in the background. Again, it's like the Titans having 2 sideline reporters for the radio, one on the road and one at home. That's a 1-person job. It's not a 2-person job. But nobody except for Paul has said that because God forbid we not just sing Kumbaya. That's it for us. We are out of here. Great show today. Connor, great job. Tomorrow, Brinker and Borgonzi open up training camp. Lord willing, health willing, we'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock.